Good morning, it's 7 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
Sophy and Wilf, good morning from both of us. We're still covering that fallout from the Epstein files.
The Peter Mandelson scandal grows as the Conservatives get ready to force a vote to make the government publish Lord Mandelson's vetting papers.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor moves out of Royal Lodge, and police confirm they're assessing claims a woman was sent to his home by Jeffrey Epstein.
Three-quarters of cancer patients in England will be living well or cancer-free 5 years after diagnosis. That's the aim under government plans to improve the survival rate.
We'll be talking to the former England footballer Michael Owen about his experience as a small business owner. We might throw in a bit of football as well, though, I'd imagine.
I have a feeling. And a report you can't miss about drones dropping illegal packages into prisons. Just look at this unbelievable footage. We'll have the whole story for you coming up.
Good morning and welcome. It's now been days of revelations and building scandal about Peter Mandelson's relationship with the paedophile billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Mandelson's now resigned from the House of Lords before he was pushed, but the fallout doesn't end there.
It will be another dramatic day in Westminster today, with the Conservative poised to trigger a Commons vote which could force the government to release all of the vetting documents from Lord Mandelson's appointment process as US ambassador.
And the Metropolitan Police have also confirmed that Lord Mandelson is now the subject of an inquiry into alleged misconduct in public office, the maximum penalty for which is life imprisonment.
We've not reached the end of this story and there's a lot to unpack. Let's kick off with our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates.
Gone the first time, gone the second time, gone for good.
The Clerk of the Parliament has today received notification from Lord Mandelson of his intention to retire from the House.
Peter Mandelson has left politics and Parliament for the last time, renouncing his seat in the House of Lords rather than waiting to be kicked out. All over his repeated lack of candour about his 20-year-plus relationship with the financier and paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
Are you embarrassed about Peter Mandelson's actions? Who's to blame for bringing him back?
Keir Starmer's anger heard behind these doors. Mandelson is a disgrace who let the country down, the Cabinet was told. His threat to pass a law to strip his peerage was the final straw. Fury over a relationship between Mandelson and Epstein that others were asking about in much more depth long before Keir Starmer.
In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
He was in jail at the time for soliciting prostitution from a minor.
And my knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
But emails released by the US government over the weekend revealed there was so much more. Payments to Mandelson's husband worth thousands. There's no suggestion of wrongdoing from him. But also alleged market-sensitive intelligence passed straight to the paedophile financier within seconds of Mandelson receiving it. Condemnation from all sides.
They have made a grave error of judgment.
I think the Prime Minister himself needs to come clean and tell us what he knew and when.
It is quite outrageous and people will be quite disgusted by it.
We shouldn't have had to wait all these months before he was able to sidle out very quietly and very disgracefully and resign without being sacked.
Downing Street has already handed over details of key emails to the police. Now Scotland Yard are looking at whether the law was broken.
The news that the police have launched a full-blown inquiry into Peter Mandelson will, incredibly, be welcomed in the building behind me because they are desperate to take as tough a line as possible to insulate themselves from the massive fallout from the departure of Peter Mandelson. Because the charge that these guys are facing is as toxic as they come in politics, that they took a hear no evil, see no evil approach to appointing a man who has been a fixture of the Labour family for more than 4 decades.
After Prime Minister's questions, the Tories will try and force the disclosure of vetting documents prepared before Mandelson's appointment, dividing Labour MPs from number 10 in the process. The embarrassment continues. Sam Coates, Sky News, Westminster.
We can talk to Mari now. There is so much to unpack in this. I just don't know where to begin. I feel like this every morning, I'll be honest. Let's talk a bit about the vote, because this could be quite significant. So the Conservatives are pushing through, basically, to try and force the government to come clean on exactly how on earth he was appointed to be US ambassador in the first place.
Exactly. So what the Tories are doing is it's opposition day, so they can basically set the agenda, and they want to table a humble address. And that basically makes the government release documents. It's been used before, for instance. And if it passes, then the government has to release those documents. It's binding. And so what Kemi Badenoch is arguing is that too many concerns were waved away when the hiring of Mandelson took place, and actually we need to look into some of the due diligence work that was done around the hiring of Mandelson. They also want to look at the emails between Peter Mandelson and Morgan McSweeney, who is the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister, specifically relating to Epstein. They also want the minutes of meetings around discussions of hiring Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the US. They want details of payments made to Peter Mandelson once he was sacked as ambassador. Those are the kinds of things that they're looking for. That's the detail, the information that they want revealed. Now, Number 10 have tabled an amendment to this humble address in which they basically just say they don't want, national security information or international diplomacy, international relations details to be released for security reasons. Fair enough. But we understand the government is willing to release these documents. And that's partly because several Labour MPs have told Sky News they are willing to vote with the opposition on this, because the idea that Labour MPs are going to vote to keep those documents behind closed doors with the amount of public anger would really just be unthinkable.
It's clearly, as we sit here today, he shouldn't have been appointed. The question, therefore, will arise, do the documents go far enough? And were they ignored? Or whoever authored the documents and handed them to the Prime Minister, here's our piece of advice, pros and cons of appointing this person. Do the documents not go far enough?
Both bad.
Both are bad, right. I mean, I don't see how it comes across well.
There's no win-win scenario here. It's a lose-lose scenario, because either you didn't look at the information deeply and well enough, and perhaps you glossed over certain elements you shouldn't have, which is bad, or you looked at the information and thought, yeah, it looks great. So either way, it's not really going to be a great outcome.
Or the Prime Minister's given a document that sort of says, we think Peter Mandelson's absolutely brilliant, there's no risk whatsoever. And then you're going to be saying, well, who signed off on this document? Who was the final person that kind of completed this document process? But it's going to be a fascinating day in Parliament, with all these interesting procedural factors around, and it will be interesting to see how his MPs vote as well.
Absolutely.
To reveal the sort of scale of anger within the party about it.
Yeah, Mara, thank you so much. Busy day for you today.
Now, the other person at the centre of the Epstein scandal is Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew. Police have confirmed that they're now assessing claims that a woman was sent to the former Duke by Jeffrey Epstein in 2010.
Well, Andrew is now officially moved out of Royal Lodge. He's now living in a house on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. Our royal correspondent Rhiannon Mills has been looking into it all.
We have known for a few months now that it wasn't if he was going to move, it was when. But certainly the palace didn't want to guide us on when exactly that process was going to begin. But it appears it has happened. After living on the Windsor estate, after living in that Royal Lodge for over 22 years, he is now, I'm told, this is how it was put to me, he is now instead a resident of Norfolk. Now, the way it's been described to me is that actually this is, in a way, the start of the move. So they've seen this as sort of the primary start of it. He's actually been moved to what they're describing as temporary accommodation. And then in further months' time, we will see him move to a more permanent residence. So look, we can't forget that over the weekend we've had all of those Epstein files released and all of the details that we've had within that, whether it's photos, emails. On top of that, there's also been these claims coming from lawyers over in the States. They say they're now representing a woman who claims that she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to Royal Lodge to spend time with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and also during that time with him also was taken to have tea at Buckingham Palace. Now, we know that Republic, who are the anti-monarchy group, had reported these allegations to the Metropolitan Police. Later on, we then heard from Thames Valley Police because, of course, the Windsor estate is within their jurisdiction. So Thames Valley Police have said, we are aware of reports about a woman said to have taken place at an address in Windsor in 2010 for sexual purposes. We're assessing the information in line with our established procedures. We take any reports of sexual crimes extremely seriously and encourage anyone with information to come forward. At this time, these allegations have not been reported to Thames Valley Police by either the lawyer or their client. And it is really important to stress that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, throughout all of this time, as we've reported on the allegations against him and his links with Jeffrey Epstein, has continued to deny any wrongdoing. However, we have not heard from him or anyone representing him over the last few days.
Rhiannon speaking there. Now, look, when we talk about the Epstein files, it seems like there's no end to the list of rich and powerful men who are named. It's like a never-ending web of connections. And when the men themselves aren't coming forth, giving interviews about what happened, sometimes it seems to fall on the women in their lives. And that's what happened to Melinda French Gates, married to Bill Gates for 27 years. And she was asked about her ex-husband's relationship with Epstein on a podcast, saying it's Bill Gates himself who needs to answer those questions.
One of the emails released last week makes a number of allegations about the Microsoft founder, including that he sought the sex offender's help when obtaining antibiotics for Miss French Gates after contracting a sexually transmitted disease. She's been speaking on NPR's Wildcard podcast.
For me, it's personally hard whenever those details come up, right? Because brings back memories of some very, very painful times in my marriage, but I have moved on from that. I purposely pushed it away and I moved on. I'm in a really unexpected, beautiful place in my life. So whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things, not me.
I feel for it, I've got to say.
Yeah, enormously. Making those comments yesterday on an NPR podcast. We should say that Bill Gates has previously said that there was, let me just get this right, no particular...
He said that the claims are absolutely absurd and completely false, and the only thing the documents demonstrate is the lengths Jeffrey Epstein would go to entrap and defame him. Just disappeared from the article.
Yeah.
Just at the wrong time.
And an important right of reply there.
Now, we're going to spend a bit of time today talking about the treatment of cancer, because the government launches its National Cancer Plan for England today.
The focus is all about getting people seen and treated more quickly, investing more money in new tech, and ending what's been described as the postcode lottery of patient care.
So, look, this is really, really important stuff, and it is worth looking in a bit more detail at some of the pledges that the government has made. It's been delayed for about a year, I should say, this cancer plan, but we finally got the details through. And this is the date I want to show you first, 2035. By that date, they want 75% of patients who are diagnosed to be either cancer-free or living well after 5 years from diagnosis. Currently, that figure's 60%. 2029, which is obviously a bit closer, they want, that's the point they say, they want to meet all cancer waiting time standards, so that would mean hundreds of thousands more patients being treated within 62 days. How are they going to speed things up? Well, they want to use an awful lot of tech. Robotic surgery used much more widely. They say that's going to reduce delays, and it would save, in total, they believe, 320,000 more lives over the course of the plan. And I guess the whole point is to try and speed things up. The biggest determiner, one of the biggest determiners for whether you're going to survive cancer is speed, right?
And I think one of the questions that's going to come out of all of this is the extent to which people think they're ambitious enough, these plans, so they go far enough. And that was a question I put to the National Clinical Director for Cancer at the NHS, Peter Johnson.
I think getting to 75% of people surviving 5 years or more after a diagnosis of cancer by 2035 is a pretty stretching ambition. We're at about 55 to 56% from the last cohort we've got data on, which is from 2016. That will undoubtedly have increased in the last few years, but we know that it's going to be quite stretching. We need to keep focusing heavily on diagnosing cancer as early as possible because we know that's what makes the biggest difference. If we can catch cancer at an early stage, then that improves the chances of surviving it more than anything else.
Well, let's talk now to Ashish Joshi, our correspondent, who is here with us. Ashish, what do you make of this? Is that ambitious enough?
It is bold and it is ambitious. Is it ambitious enough? Yes, because we're starting from a very low base point. Our survival rates lag way behind comparable health systems in Europe, including Poland and Romania, not just, you know, the big health systems that you would expect to be spending a lot on cancer care, but perhaps countries like Romania and Poland being ahead in survival rates, well, that certainly needs looking at as far as the health sector is concerned. It is bold and it is ambitious. These are reworkings of currently existing targets. So the question you would ask yourself, if the NHS hasn't managed to meet any of its key targets since 2014-15, what will change in the next 10 years to enable it to meet these very bold targets, right? So that's a question. There is pressure on the NHS. Robotic surgery will help, AI will help, the recruitment and retainment of specialist staff will help. All of these things, the faster diagnosis, the treatment, the care, the survivorship afterwards for cancer survivors who live after their cancer treatment. The NHS is under so much pressure, and the key now is, will it be able to deliver and meet these targets? The health sector is confident. £2.3 billion worth of investment. That's a lot of money, and it's got to go to the key areas. There's going to be involvement with local grassroots cancer charities and organisations. They know their communities the best. There will be cancer diagnostic centres which will be open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, allowing people to access these diagnostics on the high street. So everything is in place. The question is, if the NHS hasn't been able to meet these targets, why hasn't it been able to meet these targets for so long, and will it be able to rise to the challenge?
I guess my question on whether it's ambitious enough, I guess it doesn't really matter if we see massive improvements in outcomes, that everyone will be pleased about that. But how much, particularly the timeline we're talking about, the decade ahead, the technological advances are going to be huge. So I guess my question, and as I said, outcomes is really what matters rather than the credit, but how much of this should happen almost automatically just because of AI and technology and all the advantages that are coming?
If we listen to health leaders who have gone through this process, they will tell you, you have to start, right? You have to start and be prepared for a long-term investment and a long-term commitment. You are not going to see the results overnight. You're not going to see them in the next few months or years, but that's why we have a 10-year plan. And the data you were reading out, the statistics, Sophie, what the government is saying, these 320,000 lives will be saved for people who present with cancer after 2035, and then they will have they will either lead cancer-free lives or live well with cancer after 2035. So the investment will happen immediately, but the results might not be seen for years.
Ashish, great stuff. Thank you.
Now, a major review of the court system has been published today, and it's pretty arresting stuff. So Brian Levison, he's a senior retired judge, you probably remember from the Levison inquiry, he says the whole system is on the brink of collapse.
This is the second part of Sir Brian's review on tackling the backlog in courts. He's made more than 130 recommendations, which he says will fix the justice system.
So let's look. The review recommends reducing delays at the very start of the process, which would end the police practice of redacting case files before sharing them with the Crown Prosecution Service.
Increasing collaboration between criminal justice agencies.
Making better use of court capacity, so more courts sitting more often, introducing a framework for the Crown Court to efficiently allocate it where cases are heard.
And addressing funding in the justice system to pay for a strong workforce. So, as we said at the top, a long list of recommendations in phase two, not to say that they are minor, but they're more about efficiency, and I don't think they'll be seen as that controversial. Phase 1 was the very controversial part, in particular, you know, the proposal to reduce the extent of jury trials, something that the Justice Secretary, David Lammy, seemingly went further on in a leaked memo, and he's sort of backtracked a little bit on that. We're going to be talking about all of this with Brian Leveson. He'll be joining us at 7:30.
Yes, so Brian Leveson talking to Wilf at 7:30. We've been talking a lot about cancer and the government's cancer plan on the programme this morning. So let's get a bit more detail on that, shall we? We can talk now to the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, who is out and about this morning at a hospital, I believe. So what's the plan then? What's it going to do?
Good morning, Sophie. And not just at any hospital, I'm at the Royal Free, which saved my life when I went through kidney cancer. So as a cancer survivor myself, I could not be more proud to be launching the National Cancer Plan today. It sets out that clear goal of making sure that by 2035, 3/4 of cancer patients diagnosed in our country go on to survive, to live well at least 5 years after their treatment. And that would be a game changer from where we are, because at the moment, cancer is a lottery. And in this country, you are more likely to lose that lottery than if you lived in other countries. And only last week, I lost a good friend of mine to bowel cancer for no other reason than his cancer was not detected fast enough. So I know really well the difference between an NHS that's there for you when you need it and an NHS that doesn't reach you in time. So over the course of the next 10 years, harnessing the breakthroughs in medical science and technology will diagnose earlier and will treat faster. We'll be able to promote good public health, but also through breakthroughs in genomic medicine, we're going to be able to predict and prevent illness. People are now talking about cancer vaccines. But for anyone watching who thinks, 2035, are you even going to be around then? Well, you won't have to wait a decade to see progress. During the course of this Parliament, we're going to see a return to the cancer standards that should have always been met, but haven't been met for over a decade now, of making sure that you are diagnosed within 28 days or given the all clear. We've actually started to meet that target within our first 18 months in office. But we've got to make sure we get people faster access to treatment as well. And whether that's the £2 billion we're investing in diagnostics to create an extra 9.5 million tests, the £6 billion we're putting into investment in things like the robotic surgery that took my kidney and the cancer out, that's what gives me the confidence and the hope and the expectation that we can go from lagging behind to leading the pack.
I just want to jump in because, you know, you've spoken very movingly about your own cancer diagnosis. You've also spoken about your friend who died, and I was really struck, to be honest, to read what you wrote about him. You know, firstly, I'm really sorry for your loss, but the difference in that was the waiting times. It's about speed, isn't it? Your friend had to wait, I think it was over 100 days.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And there are lots of us who've had cancer and come through it sometimes experience what's known as survivor's guilt. And in so many ways it's caused completely irrational, and people watching might think, what on earth would you feel guilty about surviving cancer? But it is that contrast, and I'm afraid it's one that hits very close to my heart at the moment in terms of my friend Nat Dye, who died last week, who I actually got to know as his local MP, who came to see me with stage 4 bowel cancer, telling me that he was certain to die as a result of that late diagnosis, and who came to me actually saying, how can I help? Which was extraordinary. And there he was, like running the length and breadth of the country from John O'Groats to Land's End. He ran the London Marathon whilst playing his musical instrument, raised loads of money for Macmillan, still was teaching his kids at school as much as he possibly could, still performing in a band, and we've got a concert for him this evening. I mean, what a zest for life, but also like how outrageous it is that his life was cut tragically short. And one of the things I'm proud of in this cancer plan too, by the way, as well as improving cancer outcomes generally, we've got a really big focus on children and young people's cancer, because believe me, and again, having lost people in that respect, There's nothing worse than attending a child's funeral. It feels so unnatural. And we've got lots of rare cancers as well who often feel they don't get a look in, despite the fact that when you take them all together, rare cancers are common. So lots in there to change the dial on cancer.
Yeah, and
I hope people are excited by it and now get behind it.
I think an awful lot of people listening are going to, really feel a connection to what you say, frankly, about that, whether or not they know someone living with cancer now, whether they've lost someone, whether they are living with cancer right now. It's a really important subject that I'm really glad we're covering on the programme today. I want to talk to you now about Lord Mandelson. He's now being investigated by the police, of course, and he's been stripped of his peerage. After the Epstein files, it's all over for him now, right? But the questions are now about whether or not he should be appointed to be US ambassador in the first place. So I want to ask a really specific question on this. The Conservatives are moving a vote later about whether or not the government should just publish and be transparent with all of the information they got when it comes to the vetting process with Lord Mandelson and that appointment. Should the government publish that? Will the government publish it? And how will you be voting later?
Yes, I think the Prime Minister's going for maximum transparency here. He's obviously drawing a line that I think people will understand and agree with, which is not releasing information where it might compromise our national security and our security services, or where there may be information in there that might undermine international relations with other countries. But apart from those exceptions, the Prime Minister is going for real transparency here. And, in the last few days, I've seen firsthand.
His MPs have told him to.
Well, hang on a second, because in the last few days, I can tell you that no one needed to tell the Prime Minister that Peter Mandelson shouldn't return to public life, shouldn't return to the House of Lords, should be stripped of his peerage, should be stripped of other titles that confer on him that status that was given to him through public service. But now we have seen, far from public service and national interest, self-service and self-interest. Of course, all of that should go. And the Prime Minister's led on that, just as
I'm just going to come in, if I may.
The first tranche of files were released.
I'm just going to come in, if I may, because I'll be honest, I do take slight issue with the fact that the government, you say the government has led on this. Condemning Peter Mandelson right now is easy, right? Because we've seen the latest files. What would be more difficult is ruling him out of being US ambassador at the advice of other people when we knew that he had a long-standing and continuing friendship with a convicted paedophile, when we knew that he stayed at Epstein's flat in Manhattan the year after he was sentenced to prison. And I think the thing that I am struggling with slightly is that now that all these leaked documents have come out, everyone says, oh, he's a really bad guy. We knew this guy was a paedophile, and we still allowed people who were associated with him to be appointed to the highest office. That's not right, is it?
No, I read your piece on it, Sophie, and I think it's rightly challenging on all of this. I think that in relation to his appointment as US ambassador, he was appointed on the basis that he had considerable experience both as this country's business secretary and as the EU Trade Commissioner. That, combined with his political experience at a sensitive time for UK-US relations and against the backdrop of global instability, it was felt that he was the right person with the right skill set. And, of course, there was a vetting process, and he was asked about the relationship with Epstein. Assurances were given, and I think there's a general principle people tend to abide by, which is not presuming people to be guilty by association. What the Prime Minister was clear about when the last tranche of information from the Epstein files was released was that clearly he had not been given a full and accurate picture of that association, and he was not confident that there wasn't worse to come in these files. That is why the Prime Minister sacked him rapidly. And now, of course, we know, in a way that I think people have found genuinely shocking, that as a government minister, he was also sending the most sensitive, in some cases market-sensitive information. Now, there's a police investigation underway, as you say, and it's important that as a government minister that I don't comment on that. But I would just say, I do not need a copy of the ministerial code or a copy of the law of the land in front of me to know that what Peter Mandelson did was completely outrageous. And there is a feeling of deep betrayal here. He's betrayed two prime ministers. He's betrayed his country and our national interest. He's betrayed Epstein's victims. And of course, it's right that people ask questions about the process, his appointment sacking, and the Prime Minister will be transparent about that. I will just say one thing, though. We mustn't let Peter Mandelson off the hook in all of this. He is the person who is responsible and who is at serious fault and must now suffer the consequences of his actions both in office and since.
You went out to defend the appointment of Peter Mandelson last year in September. You said that, it was understandable that he got the job, that you're not guilty by association. How do you personally feel towards him now?
I think the same as everyone else, which is just feel completely betrayed. And look, there's outrage across the political spectrum on this, and there's outrage up and down the land. I can tell you that's felt particularly acutely in the Labour Party, because we also feel this is a betrayal of our values. That's what I think we are, and there is that feeling that, you think you know someone, and then you see this kind of behaviour in office as a senior government minister, and also the extent of that relationship with Epstein after his conviction. And at the heart of this, and this is something that, as a government we've been doing a lot of campaigning on and a lot of focus on in terms of changing the dial for victims of violence against women and girls. And at the heart of where things have gone so badly wrong in this country has been women and girls not being believed when they come forward. And here we are with now a convicted and notorious paedophile having got away with it in life because those women and girls were not believed because they were making allegations about someone in a position of power and authority with widespread connections. And I think that is a sobering lesson for everyone here. We mustn't have a situation where power and privilege protects against justice. And that is something that requires culture change as well as changes to law and practice.
Wes Treating, we are out of time. Thank you very much for speaking to us today. Wes Treating speaking to us there from the hospital where he got the treatment from for his cancer.
Really fascinating conversation, and I think it showed a glimpse of how tough today's going to be for the government.
And we know now that they're going to release it.
Yeah, we have to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to Sir Brian Levinson about his review of how to tackle the situation in the court system. We'll be right back.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live.
They have gone up and up. Big Sky News journalist. Ed Conway. Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think is really unusual? Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Welcome back. The second and final instalment of Sir Brian Levison's review on how to tackle the court crisis has been released this morning. There are dozens of recommendations, including calls for more remote hearings and even greater use of technology and AI. I'm pleased to say that Sir Brian joins me now. A very good morning to you, Sir Brian. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning.
How bad is the situation in the justice system? Set it up for us.
It's very serious. So the backlog is now nearly 80,000 cases, double that which it was in, I think, 2016. It means that trials are now being listed for hearing in some courts as far away as 2029 and 2030. And that's, in my mind, a denial of justice for victims, for witnesses, and indeed for defendants, all of whom need to be able to move on with their lives.
Today you're releasing phase 2, a long list of recommendations, particularly focused on driving efficiencies, and I want to get to that in just a moment. But first I wanted to reflect on your op-ed from the weekend and some of the key takeaways from phase 1 that's caused a lot of debate in recent months. The headline being, just sum it up for us, you do think we need to remove jury trials in some instances.
Let me put it the other way around. Let me say we need to focus our resources on the most serious trials and the most serious allegations of crime. What I've recommended is that the threshold is adjusted. That's happened many times in the past. So, yes, I do believe that there are some lesser offences that presently attract trial by jury which should no longer attract trial by jury because we need to focus on the more serious trials to get them through the system at a faster pace than is presently happening.
You wrote this weekend in an op-ed, I believe some critics of this recommendation are choosing tradition over a sustainable system for victims and defendants. Surely the criticism is not about tradition, it's about principle.
I've been focused on the principle throughout. I've practiced the criminal law for over 50 years, and I have a great respect for the systems that we've had in place. But the first principle must be that trials are conducted within a reasonable time. At the moment, I've told you they're listing cases many years in the future. The result is that victims who want to move on with their lives are withdrawing their complaints, and that's not justice at all. That's a denial of justice. So I am in entire agreement with those who say, well, we've had a wonderful system, we should maintain it to such extent as we can. But this isn't a binary issue. It isn't possible to carry on with the approach we have adopted to criminal justice over the years in the light of the present crisis. And let me make it clear, that crisis has been caused in some parts for understandable reasons. First of all, the complexity of the criminal law has increased. Secondly, the complexity of the evidence. Let's think about that. Mobile phones, which now produce our communications data, available in most cases that are prosecuted, weren't in existence 20 years ago. Data it overwhelms police investigations and thus trials. This is all more evidence that has to be adduced. On top of that, we've introduced all sorts of protections within the system. PACE, the Police and Criminal Evidence Act, the disclosure of unused material, the protections for vulnerable witnesses, the protections for defendants, intermediaries, interpreters. All these measures have served to double the length of time that serious crime takes to try.
I guess some would say that the debate is not therefore principle versus tradition, but prioritising of principles. But your answer is still very clear. Just a final question on this point before we get to phase two. Clearly there was a lot of coverage when a leaked memo came from the Justice Secretary about how he saw the best way to implement your recommendations. And there was a difference from your phase one recommendations. And without oversimplifying it, I think it's fair to say he was proposing removing juries from cases where it might lead to a punishment of less than 5 years. Yours had been for only less than 3 years. And for many of these changes, you'd proposed a judge plus 2 magistrates rather than a jury, and he wasn't including those extra 2 magistrates. He seemingly has stepped back from some of those proposals at this stage. Would they have been a mistake? Would they have been too much of a change?
Well, I certainly took the view that 5 years was too much, because what I'm trying to do, as I've said, is adjust the threshold, as we have in the past. So breathalyzers used to get you a trial by jury. Criminal damage less than what's now £5,000 used to get you a trial by jury. Now it doesn't. Taking a vehicle without consent used to have a trial by jury. Now it doesn't. So I was suggesting moving the threshold with it, which justified a trial, entitled you to trial by jury. The Justice Secretary clearly has now taken that 3-year threshold. What was leaked and what was contained within the leak, I'm sorry, that's not my neck of the woods.
Fair enough. Part two today, you're addressing inefficiency more broadly. Are there any easy wins?
Well, there are some comparatively straightforward things that can be done, but the real problem with the system is that it isn't a system. It's a series of systems. So the police have their own financial priorities and their own operational priorities. The CPS have their own priorities, the courts theirs, the defence community theirs. Nobody joins them together, and therefore to try to arrange that everybody is working in a coordinated fashion is the first challenge. There are some easier wins. The way in which files are put together by the police for the CPS for charging decisions to be made, I think can be solved quite quickly. The whole business of redaction ought to be capable of solution with the use of AI, not to make decisions, but to ease the process. There are lots of things that can be done.
So sum it all up for us, Sir Brian. Are you confident that in 5 years the government will make changes that will solve the crisis we face?
If you read a footnote in part 1, you would have said, I can't guarantee that this is going to solve the problem. What I can guarantee is that if we don't do everything we can, we certainly won't solve the problem. We've just got to pull all the levers. That's money, it's structural reform, and its efficiency, all three, to try to get us out of the spiral. Because if we don't get out of the spiral, it will just get worse. When I reported in July last year, there's a graph which identified how many cases were going to be in the system. We've already exceeded the upper limit of that graph by now.
Are you confident that the government will pull those levers successfully? Will they deliver?
I hope so. The government has to deal with the legislative process if they're going to take those steps, and they have to deal with the complications surrounding getting everybody to work together. So I hope so. and I have no doubt there is an enthusiasm in government to do it.
Sir Brian, thanks so much for stopping by. We appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Sir Brian Leveson there.
Well, as he said, he hopes so. We all got to hope as well, I guess. Something's got to be done to sort out the situation. Now to a story we've been following closely on Sky News. The governor of a prison housing some of the country's most dangerous criminals has told us that specialised gangs are piloting drones to deliver drugs and even weapons to people in prison.
It's an issue the prison service and the government has been struggling to get a grip on, and a new report has concluded that not nearly enough money is being spent on security. Molly Malone has this report for us.
Absolutely bangers, bro. Security's on it and everything.
Captured from the inside of a prison cell.
Won't let them go past. Security.
A drone dangling a package at the end, making its way into a high-security prison in Manchester.
No.
It was later intercepted by staff.
So they can fly them in from miles away?
Yeah.
But the governor here says the issue of drones delivering drugs and weapons is a major and growing threat.
It's gone from, say, haphazard, perhaps youngsters or disorganised local criminals to now being gangs that are specialising in this and are focusing on this and are making a lot of money from doing it. So are working up and down the country to beat our systems.
Molly's here. Molly, I can't get my head around this. I mean, it kind of blows your mind what can just be dropped into a prison. I mean, almost anything.
Yeah, I think it's worth reminding people, isn't it? Like, prisons are supposed to be the most secure institutions in the country, particularly Manchester. That's category A, it's housing terrorists. And yet, as the governor in my report just described just now, it's like people are working to beat the systems. They're trying to get in really dangerous weapons. He's found machetes in the prisons, Rambo-style knives, the most dangerous of weapons. And it's, you know, there's been 1,000% rise in the last 5 years. And the technology is becoming more and more advanced. And, yeah, they're really, really worried about it. I think... Go on, sorry.
No, keep going.
I think what's actually quite fascinating is this National Audit Office report that's come out today, because this is the government's independent spending watchdog. And you hear so often with the public service, like, people saying, oh, there's just no cash, you know, we're going to have to spend loads of money trying to sort it out. But actually what they found is there is money, but it's just really inefficiently being spent, i.e. it's not being spent. So they've got budgets, like, they found that they failed to spend £25 million of wider security investment between 2019 and 2025, and £30 million, 31% of its drugs strategy funding in the same period. And it's like, that's happening because of inefficiencies in government, people not approving. That's cross-government, I should say, but they're not approving the budgets in time, they're not recruiting the staff for the drug strategy programmes, and that's a real problem. If they've got the money to spend but it's not happening, how are you going to combat it?
Just on the sort of what people want to see to try and combat it, is there something about the punishment for flying a drone in a nefarious way that could alter how this is done? Because around airports, for example, there is very strict rules that you can't have it, and that seems to hold, but it's not above prisons.
Yeah, so they've brought in a 400-metre parameter, so you're not allowed to fly a drone within that, you know, period. But it's hard to catch them, firstly. You saw that footage in my report that you're seeing now. The person that filmed it, the inmate, got a 9-month sentence. But so often you hear, I mean, that we'll see in my report.
Probably a bad move.
Exactly. And so often you hear that we went out with Greater Manchester Police and they were saying, to quote the officer, it is as easy and as quick as that. They come, they fly the drone up, and often it's not just the person that's actually piloting the drone, it's quite organised. I've even heard of cases where the pilot will be outside of the country, you know, and it's like, that's how they're operating these drones. So they're up against it in terms of kind of clamping down on it. It's a really massive problem.
Molly, great stuff. Thanks so much. Molly's going to be back with us next hour for further discussions on this. We should say that responding to the report, the Minister for Prisons, Probation and Reducing Reoffending, Lord Timpson, said this National Audit Office report exposes yet further failings in the prison system we inherited, with underinvestment in security contributing to the unacceptable levels of drugs behind bars. We're taking decisive actions to grip the crisis, investing £40 million to bolster security, including anti-drone measures like reinforced windows and specialist netting to keep contraband out.
Coming up, we're going to be looking at fostering. It's one of those issues that can really change someone's life, some of the most vulnerable kids, and we're going to be looking at how the government is planning to make it easier for people to become foster carers.
We've come to one of Moscow's Cold War bunkers. It was built as a top-secret command centre.
Being here really feels like you're stepping back in time. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
A show of military might and menace.
Courage, bravery and sacrifice will win the day.
It's a new subject. They'll learn about combat drones and some how to handle a Kalashnikov.
The Kremlin continues to put forward its own version of events, both present and past.
There's no mention of the fact that Russia invaded its neighbour. That's rewriting history, isn't it?
Now we have to read it carefully.
Vladimir Putin put forward his plan for a ceasefire in Ukraine, telling Kiev, pull out of your eastern territories and the war will end. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Vladimir Putin is already the Kremlin's longest-serving leader since Stalin. The question is, what will a fifth Putin term mean for Russia and the world?
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Segal?
I can't answer questions that stupid.
I've watched Vladimir Putin attempt to create a new world order.
The St. Petersburg Economic Forum was the backdrop to Vladimir Putin's latest verbal volley that Russia could send missiles to other nations to target the West.
Ambassador, I wonder, shall we have a quick word for Sky News?
Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine?
Swedish media, oh my God, you're not afraid of being here.
American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
Russia says Evan Gershkovich was caught red-handed, but has never produced any evidence to back that up. Sky News. Get the full story first.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
It was 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Hello again. The government's relaxed the rules around foster care as part of its pledge to get 10,000 vulnerable children into supportive homes.
There's been a huge drop in the number of foster carers over the last few years, which means more young people are ending up in children's homes, which are often nowhere near where they've grown up and sometimes even separating people from their siblings.
And look, we all know fostering is a really tough job, but it's also incredibly rewarding, as our people and politics correspondent Nick Martin's been finding out.
Oh, I can already see it's a busy house.
Yeah, so I've been fostering 4.5 years. I have 3 boys with me at the moment. They are 12, 14 and 16. The system needs a full overhaul, not just a bit of rearranging. But we are at the breaking point now where pretty much everyone is at capacity. This is not about any one of the young people. You know, I've had knives in my face, I've had punches thrown at me. I can actually cope with that, and it might sound daft. It's the support and the lack of support by the children's social workers.
As a child in care, Gerard was sent to live with Jamie. Now 19, he's moved out, but he still keeps in touch.
Can you describe what impact Jamie had on your life?
Well, if Jamie didn't come into my life, then I'd happily say I'd be in jail or probably dead by now.
Really? What did he bring to you, do you think? What did he do?
Support. If it weren't for Jamie, I probably would have gone down the wrong path.
Well, Nick is here with us now, I'm delighted to say, and as you'll remember, no doubt, he's done so much work in this space. Nick, can you just remind us why there was such a drop-off in the number of foster carers in the first place that therefore needed to be addressed?
We saw a huge drop in foster carers after COVID. Lockdown was really a disaster for not only foster caring but for children in care. So we saw a drop in the number of foster carers in COVID, and we saw an increase in the number of children who entered the care system after COVID. So though it was a recipe for disaster. A lot of foster carers who've told me over the years they simply don't get enough support financially or training. Remember, they get an allowance. They don't really get paid for it. They get an allowance to look after children. And for many, the sums don't add up. And they're dealing with very complex issues that a lot of children have had. They've come from homes of abuse or trauma or sexual exploitation or gangs. And so the government really now have to address this. It is one of the big pillars of the care system, and now they're trying to recruit more. But we have heard this before.
Yeah, this is the thing, isn't it? And I just want to say as well, I honestly think it is the most extraordinary thing you can do, fostering. As you say, it's not like you get a salary for it. People didn't do it for, rake in loads of money. It's extraordinary and very, very difficult often. How much faith do you think you have in what the government's proposing? Is it going to make a difference?
So I was just looking back through some notes the other day. I mean, the Conservative government over Theresa May made a big thing about fostering just a few years ago. And then a couple of years after that, after a big care review was announced, the government at the time said, yeah, we're going to invest millions into foster caring. And then there was another push about 2.5 years ago. None of those things have even moved the dial on the number of foster carers who are willing to come into the system. And it is a rewarding job, there's no doubt about that, but it is an extremely difficult job as well. And the government today are saying they're going to relax the rules, they're going to allow single people to foster, whether you're renting or whether you own your home. £88 million they want to spend.
Sorry, so if you rent or if you're a single person, you can't foster? Is that the current...
Well, I'm not sure because our case study this morning, Jamie is a single man and fosters 3
But maybe it's
teenagers.
more difficult, perhaps, people look into it or something like that.
And they want to spend £88 million. Now, their pledge is to recruit 10,000 foster carers by the end of this Parliament. It is a huge ask. And one of the big problems will be trying to incentivise people to come back into the system. But what I will say is at the very heart of fixing this system that I talk about all the time is getting more foster carers. It is the difference between a good life and a very dangerous life if they don't get into foster care.
I mean, that is the place to end this hour, as such an important message from Nick. We'll be talking more about this as well throughout the programme this morning, but we'll see you in just a few moments' time.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you? People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Good morning, it's 8 o'clock and welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
We're Sophy and Wilfred. Very good morning from me as well. Lots to get to.
The Peter Mandelson scandal grows as the Conservatives get ready to force a vote on making the government publish Lord Mandelson's vetting papers.
Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor moves out of Royal Lodge and police confirm they're assessing claims that a woman was sent to his home by Jeffrey Epstein.
3/4 of cancer patients in England will be living well or cancer-free 5 years after diagnosis. That's the aim under government plans to improve the survival rate.
We're going to be speaking to the former England footballer Michael Owen about his experience as a small business founder and owner, and a little bit about football too.
And we've got some amazing pictures to show.
Wow.
And you can vote for your favourite. It's the annual Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition.
A very good morning to you and welcome to the programme. Well, it's now been days of revelations and building scandal about Peter Mandelson's relationship with the paedophile billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Mandelson has now resigned from the House of Lords before he was pushed, but the fallout doesn't end there.
It's going to be another dramatic day in Westminster, with the Conservatives poised to trigger a Commons vote, which could then force the government to release all the vetting documents from Lord Mandelson's appointment as US ambassador. I should say as well, we've heard on this programme that the government say they will release those documents.
And the Met Police have confirmed that Peter Mandelson is now the subject of an inquiry into alleged misconduct in public office, the maximum penalty for which is life imprisonment.
We've not reached the end of the story. There's lots to unpack. First, here's our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates.
Gone the first time, gone the second time, gone for good.
The Clerk of the Parliament has today received notification from Lord Mandelson of his intention to retire from the House.
Peter Mandelson has left politics and Parliament for the last time, renouncing his seat in the House of Lords rather than waiting to be kicked out. All over his repeated lack of candour about his 20-year-plus relationship with the financier and paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
Are you embarrassed about Peter Mandelson's actions? Who's to blame for bringing him back?
Keir Starmer's anger heard behind these doors. Mandelson is a disgrace who let the country down, the Cabinet was told. His threat to pass a law to strip his peerage was the final straw. Fury over a relationship between Mandelson and Epstein that others were asking about in much more depth long before Keir Starmer.
In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
He was in jail at the time for soliciting prostitution from a minor.
And my knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
But emails released by the US government over the weekend revealed there was so much more. Payments to Mandelson's husband worth thousands. There's no suggestion of wrongdoing from him. But also alleged market-sensitive intelligence passed straight to the paedophile financier within seconds of Mandelson receiving it. Condemnation from all sides.
They have made a grave error of judgment.
I think the Prime Minister himself needs to come clean and tell us what he knew and when.
It is quite outrageous and people will be quite disgusted by it.
We shouldn't have had to wait all these months before he was able to sidle out very quietly and very disgracefully and resign without being sacked.
Downing Street has already handed over details of key emails to the police. Now Scotland Yard are looking at whether the law was broken.
The news that the police have launched a full-blown inquiry into Peter Mandelson will, incredibly, be welcomed in the building behind me because they are desperate to take as tough a line as possible to insulate themselves from the massive fallout from the departure of Peter Mandelson. Because the charge that these guys are facing is as toxic as they come in politics, that they took a hear no evil, see no evil approach to appointing a man who has been a fixture of the Labour family for more than 4 decades.
After Prime Minister's questions, the Tories will try and force the disclosure of vetting documents prepared before Mandelson's appointment, dividing Labour MPs from number 10 in the process. The embarrassment continues. Sam Coates, Sky News, Westminster.
Let's talk to Mari, shall we? I mean, it looks pretty clear. You were reporting it earlier this morning. Wes Streeting confirmed it when we spoke to him. The government's going to publish most of this stuff, right, showing how they came to the conclusion that it was OK for Peter Mandelson to be US ambassador.
Yeah, exactly that. Basically, with the caveat, they don't want to release any details that have any kind of national security elements, also international relations elements. And that's what Wes Streeting was saying to you. But clearly, they are under so much pressure with this vote, with this humble address from the Tories, that actually the idea of not releasing that information would be so politically toxic at a time when, as much as they've tried to kind of condemn Peter Mandelson and basically kind of, say he's nothing to do with us anymore, he is still associated with Labour, of course, and it was still this government that put him into that position as ambassador. So they need to do as much as possible as they can in terms of a kind of repair job of their reputation. And therefore, this is a very straightforward way of doing that and a bit of a no-brainer. So we'll have to see how the day pans out when those documents are released. But it looks set to be a very, very interesting day in Parliament.
What's the mood in the Labour Party? I mean, to what extent do rank-and-file MPs feel this is, a problem that our government, our leadership has brought upon ourselves versus he duped everyone?
Well, I think it depends on who you speak to, and that's part of the problem, right? So I think in some wings of the Labour Party there is more sympathy for government and for Keir Starmer, and they feel that actually he was trying to do something risky and creative, perhaps. Other wings of the Labour Party feel that actually the writing was on the wall, this never should have been done in the first place, and actually, are we really saying that there was no one else in the entire country that could have done that job, as well as Peter Mandelson, perhaps slightly less of a risky decision?
Yeah, it's one of those issues where, I'm sure you're the same, Mari, I've had so many Labour MPs getting in touch with me, and they're furious about this. And actually, I think many of them are saying that it kind of shows a lot of what they feel is rotten about the whole system. It's kind of a lot of kind of burn the house down conversations going on. And I thought it was quite interesting, we spoke to Wes Streeting, the House Secretary, this morning, and I asked him, about whether he felt angry towards Peter Mandelson, and just listen to what he said.
I do not need a copy of the ministerial code or a copy of the law of the land in front of me to know that what Peter Mandelson did was completely outrageous. And there is a feeling of deep betrayal here. He's betrayed two prime ministers. He's betrayed his country and our national interest. He's betrayed Epstein's victims. And of course, it's right that people ask questions about the process, his appointment sacking, and the Prime Minister will be transparent about that. I will just say one thing, though. We mustn't let Peter Mandelson off the hook in all of this. He is the person who is responsible and who is at serious fault and must now suffer the consequences of his actions both in office and since.
It's going to be fascinating to see what's in the advice that was given to the Prime Minister at the moment that he appointed him.
I think that's when more revelations will come in terms of we can start to understand the thinking behind the decision to hire Peter Mandelson, the information that the PM had at his disposal when he made that decision, and therefore the calculations that were made. I think that will help us understand how we've got to this point and whether or not perhaps unnecessary risks were taken, or whether perhaps there wasn't enough detail in that kind of due diligence.
Neither great. This is the problem, I guess.
Mark, Christoph, thank you. Now, the other person, of course, at the centre of the Epstein scandal is Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew. Police have confirmed they're now assessing claims that a woman was sent to the former Duke by Jeffrey Epstein back in 2010.
So Andrew's now officially moved out of Royal Lodge. He's living in a house on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. Here's Rhiannon, our royal correspondent, explaining what's going on.
We have known for a few months now that it wasn't if he was going to move, it was when. But certainly the palace didn't want to guide us on when exactly that process was going to begin. But it appears it has happened. After living on the Windsor estate, after living in that Royal Lodge for over 22 years, he is now, I'm told, this is how it was put to me, he is now instead a resident of Norfolk. Now, the way it's been described to me is that actually this is, in a way, the start of the move. So they've seen this as sort of the primary start of it. He's actually been moved to what they're describing as temporary accommodation. And then in further months' time, we will see him move to a more permanent residence. So look, we can't forget that over the weekend we've had all of those Epstein files released and all of the details that we've had within that, whether it's photos, emails. On top of that, there's also been these claims coming from lawyers over in the States. They say they're now representing a woman who claims that she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to Raw Lodge to spend time with Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, and also during that time with him also was taken to have tea at Buckingham Palace. Now, we know that Republic, who are the anti-monarchy group, had reported these allegations to the Metropolitan Police. Later on, we then heard from Thames Valley Police because, of course, the Windsor estate is within their jurisdiction. So Thames Valley Police have said, we are aware of reports about a woman said to have taken place at an address in Windsor in 2010 for sexual purposes. We're assessing the information in line with our established procedures. We take any reports of sexual crimes extremely seriously and encourage anyone with information to come forward. At this time, these allegations have not been reported to Thames Valley Police by either the lawyer or their client. And it is really important to stress that Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, throughout all of this time, as we've reported on the allegations against him and his links with Jeffrey Epstein, has continued to deny any wrongdoing. However, we have not heard from him or anyone representing him over the last few days.
Rhiannon, there. Now, look, when we talk about the Epstein files, it feels like there's a kind of endless list of rich and powerful men who are named, a never-ending web of connections. And I guess the thing that gets me is when the men themselves aren't coming forth and giving interviews about what happened, sometimes it seems to fall on the women in their lives. And that's what happened to Melinda French Gates, married to Bill Gates for 27 years. And she was asked about her ex-husband's relationship with Epstein on a podcast. This is what she said. Oh, sorry, Wilf. Apologies.
Well,
I'm not jumping around with the auto cue and messing up.
Well, no, let's listen in.
For me, it's personally hard whenever those details come up, right? Because brings back memories of some very, very painful times in my marriage. But I have moved on from that. I purposely pushed it away and I moved on. I'm in a really unexpected, beautiful place in my life. So whatever questions remain there of what I can't even begin to know all of it, those questions are for those people and for even my ex-husband. They need to answer to those things, not me.
Oh, well, Bill Gates has previously said that these claims are, in his words, absolutely absurd and completely false. He's also said that the only thing these documents demonstrate is the lengths Jeffrey Epstein would go to entrap and defame him. I think, regardless, everyone has huge sympathy for Melinda.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's completely right. Now, we're going to spend a bit of time today talking about the treatment of cancer. The government's launched its National Cancer Plan for England today, so pretty big news.
The focus is all about getting people seen and treated more quickly, investing more money in new tech and ending what's been described as the postcode lottery of patient care.
Yes, I'm going to jump up for a minute because I just want to dwell on a couple of the highlights of this because it is really important stuff. And the first number that we're going to look at is this one, 2035. So this is the deadline they've given them. They want 75% of patients diagnosed from 2025 to be either cancer-free or living well after 5 years. Currently, that number is 60%, so it's pretty ambitious. And by 2029, effectively to meet that, they want to meet all cancer waiting time standards. So hundreds of thousands of patients being seen more quickly and treated within 62 days. A way that they're going to speed it all up, using tech, robotic surgery. They're going to use that much more widely. And they say that in total, by speeding up everything, getting people treated, seen, diagnosed more quickly, they could save 320,000 more lives. So I guess the takeaway is they just want to do everything more quickly.
Yeah, and the Health Minister, Ashley Dalton, who's leading parts of this plan, is being treated for cancer herself, and she's spoken about her experience.
My cancer has been absolutely fundamental to the work that I've done in government and in Parliament as a whole. It's one of the things that drove me to stand for Parliament in the first place, not just my own cancer, but my daughter's dad was diagnosed with incurable kidney cancer 6 months after my primary breast cancer diagnosis. So we had a 14-year-old who had both of her parents in hospital with cancer at the same time. And that really kind of, you know, solidified it for me that we had to do something. I was late diagnosed. Initially, it hadn't spread, but, you know, Edie's dad was late diagnosed. It was stage 4 at the point that it was discovered, so there was very little that could be done. So I knew then that we had to do something to improve faster diagnosis rates and to improve treatment for people, not only through cancer, but after cancer.
It's interesting, I was reading a bit into the story about Ashley Dalton, and when the diagnosis happened, she was asked, oh, do you want to take a bit of time off work, you know, take a step back? And she was like, absolutely not. This is even more important to me than ever. And she's actually now looking into work to try and make it easier for people going through cancer treatment to stay in work if they so want to.
It's quite amazing. And then Wes Streeting talking very openly and bravely about the fact that he's gone through cancer treatment himself too, and was, you know, to be fair to him, reflecting on how it can make a difference, various factors within the NHS. He got good treatment and his friend didn't, who he was reflecting on had passed away from it. So kind of amazing how much it affects so many people.
Oh, honestly,
specifically these government ministers.
Everyone knows someone who either has had cancer or is going through treatment, or maybe they are themselves. It's extraordinary, and it really does feel like it's all about the speed of diagnosis, speed of treatment, and trying to make it universal across the UK as well.
Now, a major review of the court system has been published today, and the diagnosis is arresting. Sabra Limson is a senior retired judge. She says the whole system is on the brink of collapse.
Yeah, the interview that Wilfred did with him earlier, it really does lay bare the scale of the issue. His review on tackling the backlog in courts has 130 recommendations in it that he says will try and fix the justice system.
The review, this phase 2 of the review, recommends reducing delays at the very start of the process by ending the police practice of redacting case files before sharing them with the Crown Prosecution Service.
Increasing collaboration between criminal justice agencies.
Making better use of court capacity by introducing a framework for the Crown Court to more efficiently allocate where cases are heard.
And also addressing funding in the justice system, which I think really is all about workforce in particular.
Well, we spoke to Sir Brian a little earlier, and he stressed the importance of taking action now.
What I can guarantee is that if we don't do everything we can, we certainly won't solve the problem. We've just got to pull all the levers. That's money, it's structural reform and its efficiency, all three, to try to get us out of the spiral, because if we don't get out of the spiral, it will just get worse. When I reported in July last year, there's a graph which identified how many cases were going to be in the system. We've already exceeded the upper limit of that graph by now.
That was Sir Brian Leveson last hour. I think a lot of this phase 2 recommendations aren't that controversial. Some of them deliver, he was outlining, decent wins, but they're not transformational. I think phase 1, and particularly the extent to which jury trials, is still the issue. I thought what was so interesting about the conversation there is the way he articulated how some things in the past, like drink driving, allowed you to a jury trial and now doesn't. And so there is a history of slightly altering these things over time. The difference is perhaps those were small adjustments at the bottom end. What's going to potentially happen now is quite a big adjustment at very controversial levels of punishment.
Yeah, we've seen the kind of reaction from a lot of politicians as well. It's going to be very, very controversial pushing it through. But yeah, it was fascinating to hear from Lord Leveson himself.
We are now going to talk to the legendary England footballer Michael Owen about lots of things, but first and foremost about his role as a business leader. Michael, welcome to the programme. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much. What a lovely intro that was. I haven't been called that for a while.
Well, I don't know why not. I mean, I guess your colleagues, when you're doing the TV, aren't you become rivals, I guess, with them in the banter stakes. Let's talk about the business you founded, which is Manor House Stables. Talk us about how you kind of transitioned from football life to business life, and how difficult that transition was initially.
Yeah, it's something that I had my eye on when I was playing football, actually. I was always thinking of the future and what I could do when I retired. And a passion of mine has always been horse racing. So at 22 years of age, I ended up buying a arable farm. And over the last 24 years, converted it in the initial stage, and then tried to grow a business in horse racing. We started off with about 10 horses. They were all mine. So I was basically out of one pocket into the other. But I just knew that this was my passion, and it was going to be my passion for life. And I thought it'd be fantastic to retire from football and go into a business that you jump out of bed every morning, you get excited about going to work. So I started that about 24 years ago, and fast forward 24 years, we're now training over 140 thoroughbreds for a lot of people that you will have heard of, a lot of famous people around the world, a lot of passionate horse owners. I never thought it'd be this big or this successful, but obviously with that comes problems and great things as well. Don't get me wrong, this is not a sob story. This is it's fantastic. It's absolutely everything I want to do. But there's a lot to learn, let's say, after kicking a bag of air around for a while. Now it's trying to learn about business on the hop is quite difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting because, look, we talked to a lot of businesses on the programme, and almost to a man and a woman, they say times are really, really tough at the minute. And I just wondered if you wanted to reflect a little bit about, you know, some of the challenges that you see and the kind of help that you think would be valuable for business owners like yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, I've always tried to keep abreast of what's happening around the business. Obviously, we're employing over 50 people here at Manor House Stables, lots of, you know, riders, but there's ground staff, there's all kinds of people that are employed. And it just feels like every few months, every year, there's another punch on the nose. You know, costs are going up, whether that's feed, whether that's bedding, whether that's staff costs. We're here as well talking about mobile data and how much of a leakage that can cause businesses as well. So yeah, I think there's so many costs that keep going up, and trying to find savings in any way you can, or prevent leakage, let's say, is as important. So yeah, I'm finding out, to my cost in many ways, it's probably not my expertise, but as the business owner, it's obviously really important to me.
I guess the sort of follow-up to that, particularly in your industry, I know you train horses, but there's been a lot of questions over the horse racing industry and various sort of approaches to gambling, tax and regulation at the same time. As an employer, obviously there's been things like national insurance contributions going up and taxes in that regard. Do you understand the measures that get taken given all the spending pressures on government, or do you feel that sometimes the small, medium-sized business owner isn't prioritised enough in government thinking?
Well, I think a lot of us always look ourselves and think we're being harshly treated. I mean, certainly this industry is a huge industry and of huge benefit to the government. You know, there's so many hundreds of thousands of people either directly or indirectly employed through racing. It's also the second most attended sport in our country behind football. I mean, it's huge, and for, you know, rural areas like where we are, it's the lifeblood. So yes, you always want help. I mean, racing is on the back foot, no question about it. You know, gambling is intrinsically linked with racing, and the pressures that, you know, the whole industry is you know, under from things like that, you know, from the levy going up, from, you know, taxes going up and contributions going on and everything. You know, there's lots of trainers going out of business now. It's almost like, thankfully, we've just got past the sort of small business where, you know, if you're training 30, 40 horses, that used to be a lovely number that you could make a nice living, you can pay your staff and everything can be fine. Nowadays, they're going out of business, and lots of them, and it's quite scary. The big are getting bigger, I suppose, and the rest are just falling away, and that's costing jobs, it's costing livelihoods, it's costing families, it's everything. So yes, it's a difficult industry.
It's a really important message. I was so intrigued that you bought this arable farm, like you said. you ever thought about doing a documentary? I'm thinking like Jeremy Clarkson. I'd love to watch that, I tell you.
Well, I'm glad you said it, yes. It's that was supposed to be under wraps. How did you know? Did you guess? We're currently doing that.
There you go.
More to be revealed in the future, but no, it's got a little bit of a Clarkson vibe to it. So yeah, that's we're about halfway through filming, so we're really, really excited by that.
Watch the space.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that for sure.
Absolutely.
Michael, we wanted to ask you a little bit about some football stuff, and as an Arsenal fan, I don't want to dwell on the 2001 FA Cup final if we can avoid that, and instead just talk about England first of all. What are our chances? I mean, Sophie sort of keeps me in check on this because I'm kind of a bit ahead of myself.
He's way ahead of himself.
I think we're going to win. I think we are. But we've got as good a chance as we've had for decades.
To be honest, I rarely go into a tournament thinking we haven't got a chance. That's the problem. There are 8 teams maybe that can win it, that realistically can win it. And we're definitely in that. I mean, I think our attacking options are great. I think defensively we're big question marks at the moment. Let's see how that progresses from now to the start of the tournament. I think the big question I've got is the timing of the year and the location of the event. I know there's 1 or 2 stadiums that have got air conditioning, but in America, in Mexico, in Canada, in the middle of the summer, 40+ degrees, that's going to favour the Brazilians. It's going to favour the Argentinians, maybe even the Spanish or the Portuguese. That's my only big question. In terms of quality of players, I don't think there's a nation that have got as many great attacking players. Obviously, we've got our standout goal scorer, Harry Kane, but then we've got sort of 8, 9 players, that all attacking players that are absolutely top class, and that's where our strength lies. As I say, conditions put me off. When we had one of our best teams, we were in Japan, and playing in 40 degrees plus was just against the Brazilians. I mean, it was just impossible, honestly. And that's my only big concern.
We're out of time, but I wonder if you could give me a yes or no answer to the final question that Wilf's going to be interested in as an Arsenal fan. Are Arsenal going to win the league, yes or no?
Sadly. Yes.
That's the best single word we can get because it employs all of the emotions I want to come out.
It's been great to have you on. Thank you so much. We'd love to speak to you again. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
What a legend, Michael Owen.
You're happy with the last one, weren't you?
Even when he was at Liverpool, he was epic. I've lost my earpiece, so I think we have to go to break, because I know they were wrapping the interview.
Lots coming up. We're going to be talking about the government's cancer strategy next as Wilf sorts out his technical gear.
We don't need to hear from the control room, which could have meant we could have spoken to Michael Owen for hours. But anyway, we'll be right back.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome, Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started. So the government launches its national cancer plan today, and it's all about trying to get people to be seen faster, slashing waiting times, investing more money in new tech, and entering what's been described as the postcode lottery of patient care.
I got a chance to catch up with Professor Peter Johnson, who's the National Clinical Director for Cancer at NHS England, and I got his thoughts on the government's plan. What do you see as the main aim of the government's cancer plan?
So what we need to do is capitalise on where we've been doing well. Survival from cancer has never been higher, but there's also a sense that progress has slowed in the last few years, and certainly as we all get older and as more people get cancer, so we need to make sure that we're responding to the pressure in the system and make the most of things like modern technology, AI, digital capabilities to deal with the pressures that are coming through.
I guess none of those things are that new. So why has it taken this long to be announcing this plan?
The cancer plan is something that we've been renewing every 10 years or so, and we've been working to a previous plan in the NHS, the long-term plan, which focused very heavily on the early diagnosis of cancer. Now, that's a focus that we need to maintain, but we also are aware that things are changing. The world is changing in the way that we use AI, for example, and can use that to speed up diagnosis and to help make the most of the workforce that we've got. Lots of changes in the digital world as well, using the NHS app to contact people to make sure that we can make them aware of trials, for example, that are available for them. So we need to flex the plan at the same time as really maintaining the focus on preventing people from dying from cancer, which is, of course, the headline ambition.
Do you think that there's been a change in sentiment along with the change in government towards cancer in the NHS?
I think the focus on improving cancer and investing in the NHS has probably become stronger in the last year or two. We've started to see improvements. We've really struggled to hit our cancer waiting times, and there's been a historic level of underinvestment, particularly in diagnostic services, things like scanners and radiologists to read X-rays. And we've started to reverse that. A huge amount of money has gone into community diagnostic centres to make these services more widely available.
You mentioned waiting lists. Clearly, that is an area where everyone's aware we've disappointed. You kind of framed some of the areas as doing relatively well, but do you accept when most international comparisons, particularly in the last 5 or so years, we haven't done so well on cancer metrics?
Our survival figures continue to improve, and in many areas we're actually catching up with people internationally, but also there's a recognition that we have much further to go. I think all healthcare systems, and if you look across Europe, it's the same in many different countries, everyone is struggling to cope with the fact that we're all living longer, which makes us more likely to get cancer, which means that there are more people who need to be diagnosed and treated. And what we need to do is work out where we can grow most rapidly, where we can really put the resources in to make a difference.
The plan wants to get a 5-year survival rate up to 75% by 2035. Where is it now? And with the pace of improvement that you're alluding to and all sorts of medicine and technology, might we be able to overshoot that? Might we be actually undershooting?
I think getting to 75% of people surviving 5 years or more after a diagnosis of cancer by 2035 is a pretty stretching ambition. We're at about 55 to 56% from the last cohort we've got data on, which is from 2016. That will undoubtedly have increased in the last few years, but we know that it's going to be quite stretching. We need to keep focusing heavily on diagnosing cancer as early as possible because we know that's what makes the biggest difference. If we can catch cancer at an early stage, then that improves the chances of surviving it more than anything else.
Is AI going to help with that?
AI can help us to make the most of the expertise that we've got available. So using it as part of the diagnostic process, helping people to read CT scans faster. We've seen data coming up about mammography, for example, using AI instead of a second radiologist to look at mammographic scans can maintain the quality but obviously reduce the workload. So finding ways to streamline the processes that we've got going on at the moment is probably where AI is going to be most helpful.
And in terms of where those streamline abilities or optionality exists, you mentioned waiting lists. Is that the main area, or are there more complex down-the-line aspects that could deliver great rewards?
So about 3.3 million people were referred for investigation of possible cancer in England last year. And what that tells you is that there's a huge number of people for whom we need to have diagnostic tests available and have to give them the answers to those as quickly as possible. That puts a huge pressure on our expert workforce, whether it's radiologists looking at CT scans or histopathologists looking at biopsies. And what we want to do is give them the tools to work as rapidly as possible to make sure that we meet the demands that our ageing population is putting on the system.
Clearly, across different regions, there are different results in all parts of the NHS, but I think it's very stark in cancer treatment. The least deprived, the most deprived areas of England see the stage of diagnosis much worse than in richer areas. How is this plan going to address that?
Tackling differences in stage of diagnosis, expertise of treatment across the country is a really important part of this plan, driving down on inequality. One of the areas where we've seen big progress on this, for example, is in the diagnosis of lung cancer, where our lung cancer screening programme has been targeted at those communities where smoking rates are highest, people's chances of getting lung cancer are highest, and the rates of late diagnosis are highest. By doing that, by focusing our screening programs into those areas, what we've seen is that we've reversed that relationship. So people in the poorest areas are now more likely to get their lung cancer diagnosed early because we've focused the resources on dealing with that particular problem.
Just finally, Peter, sort of question slightly stepping back from all of this, but your views towards the NHS structure overall. There's been talk of need for reform, and different governments over the course of this century have gone back and forth about employing permanent leadership that doesn't change with a changing government versus the government minister needing to have more authority and control again. Where do you stand on what works best?
I think what works best is having a plan that is relatively long-term, that allows you to manage the system not just for this year, but for a decade, that gives you a stable structure so that people know who's going to be delivering the care. We have Cancer Alliances, which is a network of organisations across the country who've been doing a fantastic job in the last 5 years, helping us to improve early diagnosis, helping to improve survival. And I'm delighted that they're part of this plan going forward, because what that tells you is we've got a stable structure for delivering this change. We've got ring-fence funding, £200 million for them next year, to make sure that we can deliver the things that we need to do on the ground.
Peter, thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure.
Further details and reflection there on the government's new cancer plan, and we'll reflect again on that at the top of the next hour with some thoughts from Wes Streeting.
And now, like it or not, smartwatches are everywhere. Lots of people using them to send messages, to pay for things, but of course you can also monitor your health through them as well.
Some people might find that is all a bit too much, but our next guest is wearing his watch, quite literally saved his life. Joining us now is the journalist Stephen Pollard. So, Stephen, you've written about this in the last few days, and as we said in the intro, if not for your smartwatch, you could be dead.
It's possible, yes. So a few weeks ago, I had a bad cough, and I went to see the GP. It was one of those coughs really debilitating, you know, where you can't work and you're heaving your guts out every time. Went to see the GP. GP said it's a chest infection, prescribed some antibiotics. What I didn't expect was, well, to cut a long story short, I also have leukemia, and I take a daily chemo pill. And on my records, plus I told the nurse, plus I told the GP what drugs I was on. And as I say, to cut a long story short, they prescribed me some drugs that clashed with my chemo, which meant that within 12 hours of taking the antibiotics, I had first of all, I had the most appalling headache, but then that moved and it went into a kind of extreme nausea, like the worst seasickness you can imagine. And I went straight to bed, and I was in bed for at least, initially well over a day, feeling this terrible sickness. What I'm not mentioning is that when I first started taking the pills, I got an alert on my watch, which said that my heart rate had gone to over 120. It's normally, a lot less than that. I'm not a doctor, but it's a lot less than that. I just, being the idiot that I am, I just thought, well, of course my heart's going mad. I'm coughing my guts out. I'm got, tense and all the rest of it. So I took no notice of it whatsoever. Anyway, a few hours later, my sister called me, and she wanted to check how I was, and I told her. I'd taken my watch off by then because I was lying in bed. Anyway, I called. She said, "You've got to call the doctor back. This seems a bit weird." The doctor, a second GP that I spoke to, then realised that I'd been misprescribed these drugs. And and he asked about my heart. He said, the reason that you're feeling so dizzy isn't because you're feeling dizzy. It's because your heart's gone berserk. And that's what's done this. And basically, if I'd not called the GP back and I'd not told him about the heart rate, which was only a result of the Apple Watch telling me this, he said, to be blunt, God alone knows what could have happened if you'd not called me and you'd been lying. Because I just thought, I'm not a doctor. I thought, I'm ill, so I'm dizzy, so sleep it off. And in fact, I thought
I think it's extraordinary, I have to say, listening to you, that, and I think we're all the same, right? You kind of downplay things, I'm ill, go to bed, whatever, don't cause a fuss. But I guess the difference with these watches and the wearable tech is that you have a record of your normal behaviour, and they're sending you alerts saying, this is not OK, you need to do something about it.
And, it's, as you say, it's so easy to downplay it, which I did. I was sitting on the sofa, feeling awful, getting this alert and thinking, of course I'm a bit rubbish. I should have taken note instantly then. But, thank God, my sister called me and told me to call the doctor, who the first thing he asked me was, he said, are you wearing a watch? And a smartwatch. And I said, or a fitness thing. And I said, yes. He said, have you had any readings from it? So I told him, and then he said, right, well, here we go. And then over the course of so I had to stop taking the pills. And then basically I was monitored over the course of the night. Pretty much as soon as 12 hours or so after I stopped taking the conflicting antibiotic, my heart started to come down. But he said, you really we have to monitor you over hourly, basically. And if there's any sign that the heart's going up again, then you're in real trouble. And anyway, thank God I didn't. And I'm pretty much completely recovered now, thanks to my watch.
Thank God indeed, Stephen. And as you say, these new devices can be incredibly helpful in these sorts of areas. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Stephen Pollard joining us there. Let's have a look at the weather.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather.
The unsettled theme continues this week with spells of rain and hill snow bringing localised disruption. It's chilly out there now with some icy stretches, but the southwest is milder. Patchy rain, sleet and hill snow in the north will become increasingly confined to Scotland this morning, allowing Northern Ireland and Northern England to largely dry up. Elsewhere, it'll be mainly dry with low cloud in the south breaking to give sunny spells, but there'll be showers mainly over Ireland and it'll be milder than yesterday, but there'll still also be a brisk wind. Rain, sleet and hill snow in Scotland will become confined to the northeast this afternoon, while Ireland will see more showers. Most other places look dry, but southwest England will see rain moving in by evening.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
I just want to give you a bit of an update on travel, particularly if you're around the kind of South London area, if you're out and about, because there is some pretty major disruption going on. Passengers across 3 different rail operators are facing major disruption. They've been told not to travel after what they're describing as multiple incidents around South London. It's a derailment, it's a fault with signalling, but there's going to be disruption at least till the early afternoon.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the Wildlife Photographer of the Year and reviewing a couple of the winners and the runners-up.
We've come to one of Moscow's Cold War bunkers. It was built as a top-secret command centre.
Being here really feels like you're stepping back in time. I'm Ivor Bennett, Sky's Moscow correspondent.
A show of military might and menace.
Courage, bravery and sacrifice will win the day.
It's a new subject. They'll learn about combat drones and some how to handle a Kalashnikov.
The Kremlin continues to put forward its own version of events, both present and past.
There's no mention of the fact that Russia invaded its neighbour. That's rewriting history, isn't it?
Now we have to read it carefully.
Vladimir Putin put forward his plan for a ceasefire in Ukraine, telling Kiev, pull out of your eastern territories and the war will end. Why should the West trust you?
Frankly, I don't care whether the West trusts us or not.
Vladimir Putin is already the Kremlin's longest-serving leader since Stalin. The question is, what will a 5th Putin term mean for Russia and the world?
Why do you support Vladimir Putin, Mr. Segal?
I can't answer questions that stupid.
I've watched Vladimir Putin attempt to create a new world order.
The St. Petersburg Economic Forum was the backdrop to Vladimir Putin's latest verbal volley that Russia could send missiles to other nations to target the West.
Ambassador, I wonder, shall we have a quick word for Sky News?
Is the West right? Are you fueling Russia's war machine?
British media, oh my God, you're not afraid of being here.
American journalist Evan Gershkovich is on trial here, but was first on display.
Russia says Evan Gershkovich was caught red-handed, but has never produced any evidence to back that up. Sky News. Get the full story first.
Liberation Day.
By popular demand, here we are.
Donald Trump. It is quite the story. Wherever it goes, on Trump 100, we go with it.
Can you tell us who you're looking for?
Unbelievable we've come to this.
Are you overstating the reach and significance of this deal?
Not like you said it.
From the UK.
Why don't you go back to your country where you have a major migrant problem?
Who's 10 feet from him, and all of a sudden the shot's running out.
People impacted.
I'll tell you on another day on the podcast what that was all about.
Join us wherever you get your podcast.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
Now, to a story we've been following closely here on Sky News. The governor of a prison housing some of the country's most dangerous criminals has told us that specialised gangs are piloting drones to deliver drugs and weapons to inmates.
It's an issue that the prison service and the government have been frankly struggling to get a grip on. And now we've got this new report that says not nearly enough money is being spent on security. Molly Malone's been looking into it for us as part of Molly's ongoing work on prisons. It's pretty stark, isn't it? We want to talk to you about it, but I think we can have a look at her report first.
Absolutely bangers, bro. Security's on it and everything.
Captured from the inside of a prison cell.
Won't let them go past. Security.
A drone dangling a package at the end, making its way into a high-security prison in Manchester.
No.
It was later intercepted by staff.
So they can fly them in from miles away?
Yeah.
But the governor here says the issue of drones delivering drugs and weapons is a major and growing threat.
It's gone from, say, haphazard
perhaps youngsters or disorganised local criminals are now being gangs that are specialising in this and are focusing on this and are making a lot of money from doing it. So are working up and down the country to beat our systems.
We'll talk to Molly a bit more about this. So I think the first thing to say is this is a really, really dangerous prison where this is happening. The kind of guys that you don't want to be getting a load of weapons shipped in.
Yeah, but also these people, the governor was saying to me in part of our chat, he was saying people will go to Manchester, but then you'll also see them targeting Long Lartin, and it's the same bunch of criminals that are targeting prisons up and down the country, and they're trying to get in weapons, they're trying to get in drugs into the most... Look, they're supposed to be the most highly secure institutions in the whole of the country, right? And yet people are getting in whatever they want to. And when I talk to people about this, everyone says, what? Like, how can that be possible? And some of it is really basic security stuff, and it's a slightly more boring side of this story, but actually I think it's really important because part of it is like the procurement process for prisons. So, you know, they might want to get grills for the windows, but they go through months of like planning permission and approvals. And, you know, that's basic security for a prison, but it has to be the same in Manchester as it is in Long Lartin. And it's like basic things slowing down and approval systems with ministers. And that's why I think this National Audit Office report is really important. And actually, the government do listen to the National Audit Office. It's their independent sort of watchdog, but what they say kind of matters. And they found millions and millions of pounds of underspends on basic security measures. And if they're not being able to spend the money, and that's partly staff recruitment, it's partly just delays by ministers not approving things in time, they don't really stand a chance of getting these things in place.
I guess this technology must not exist, or in an effective way, to block the ability to control a drone over certain locations.
It does exist. It does exist, but again, it's part of the procurement process, it's part of the money, and it's probably about £500,000 to spend it on a prison. And yeah, while we're talking about millions for security investment, billions and billions if you're talking, you know, properly blocking and repelling that drone technology. I mean, David Lammy went to Ukraine a couple of weeks ago to try and look at what they're using for counter-drone measures there. So, that, I mean, they are taking it seriously, but it takes such a long time to actually get these things in place. And by the time you do it, the technology's evolved.
And also,
so it's what they're up against.
It just feels as well like, you know, the whole political background of spending more money on prisons at a time when you were releasing prisoners early is just so politically difficult as well, right?
Yeah, who wants to spend it on that, you know, when people are hard-pressed?
We should mention that the Minister for Prisons, Probation and Reducing Reoffending, Lord Timpson, said this: the National Audit Office report exposes yet further failings in the prison system we inherited, with underinvestment in security contributing to the unacceptable levels of drugs behind bars. We are taking decisive action to grip the crisis, investing £40 million to bolster security, including anti-drone measures like reinforced windows and specialist netting to keep contraband out.
Now, I'm really excited about this story because it's basically an excuse to show you some of the most incredible photographs around. Thousands of people have flocked to all corners of the world to capture some of nature's most incredible moments.
It's all in aid of the Natural History Museum's Wildlife Photographer of the Year competition. And once again, the public are being given the chance to vote for their favourite entry.
My favourite entry, I just want to show you before we bring in the guest, is this one. So this is by an artist called Joseph. Stefan is a young lynx throwing a rodent into the air before killing and devouring it. Joseph actually spent 2 weeks hiding out to capture this photograph, and he said that this lynx, he tossed it up into the air first and he played with it for around 20 minutes. It's all in Spain. Incredible, extraordinary image there.
There really are some amazing ones. We're going to start floating them across the conversation. Let's bring in Pauline Robert, who's in charge of the programme. Pauline, just remind our viewers that this is an annual competition and decided by the public.
Good morning. Yes, absolutely. So every year we've got the annual competition, which awards 100 images. But the jury always wants to award more. There are so many more images, so many more stories that need to be shared and told. So there's another selection, and this time it's for the public to decide which one they like the most. And we've got a wonderful collection from all over the world. We've got photographs taken in Japan, in Thailand, Peru, Costa Rica, and closer to home in the UK and in Denmark. It's really just showing the amazing beauty of nature, but also, you know, our impact on it. So amazing selection of photographs that you can now vote for online on the website, Wildlife Photographer of the Year.
I absolutely love this. Your favourite picture, which I think we can show you, is these 3 young kestrels, and they're basically plucking up the courage to leap from their nest there to that beam.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's only 31 inches, really just a small leap. And yet they took almost a week to find the courage to take the leap. But what I love about this image, first of all, it's the kestrels. It was taken in Germany, but it's a much loved and much known species of the UK as well. And what I love is the photographer actually took this from his living room, and he was able to observe these birds from the moment the parents courted until the youngs were born. And it shows that nature is on our doorstep. You don't need to travel the world to experience it. You can just start right at home, looking at the window. Even in an urban environment, we know our foxes in London, and plenty of birds as well, birds of prey. It's a story about nature being close to us all the time. We just don't notice.
We only have 30 seconds left, so an unfair question to put on you. But does AI entries, will they be allowed in years ahead?
No, AI entry are not allowed because we want to represent the reality of nature. We don't want to disturb any of that. And there has to be some truth to these images. So absolutely no, AI-generated images are not allowed in the competition and will not be.
I love that.
It's a good answer. The one that we hoped and expected for, but good to hear it nonetheless. Pauline, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Sophie and Will.
I feel I can really...
Oh, this was my favourite.
This is Will's favourite.
Adorable little bears.
I hope they got out of the way.
I was going to say they wouldn't be as adorable in 5 years' time.
And this, I feel, I can really relate to those kestrels. Building up the courage, taking a week to make the big leap.
But can't they fly?
Faith.
I didn't quite get that one.
Because they're little babies.
Oh, they look quite old.
Yeah.
We're out of time. We'll be right back.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Good morning, it's 9 o'clock. Welcome to Mornings with Ridge and Frost.
And Sophy and Wilf, good morning from both of us. An awful lot to get to.
The Peter Mandelson scandal grows as the Conservatives get ready to force a vote to make the government publish Lord Mandelson's vetting papers.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor moves out of Royal Lodge, and police confirm they're looking into claims a woman was sent to his home by Jeffrey Epstein.
Three-quarters of cancer patients in England will be living well or cancer-free 5 years after diagnosis. That's the aim under government plans to improve the survival rate.
We're talking about the rules around foster care. Labour wants to try and place more vulnerable children into supportive homes, and we'll be talking to two people who might be familiar to you, Traitor stars Roxy and Judy.
And a story of enduring survival. We'll talk about a new film that explores the resilience of a Palestinian family uprooted by unrest in the occupied West Bank.
Good morning, welcome. It's now been days of revelations, building scandal about Peter Mandelson's relationship with the paedophile billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. Mandelson has now resigned from the House of Lords, although, frankly, before he was pushed, but the fallout doesn't end there.
It's going to be another dramatic day in Westminster, with the Conservative poised to trigger a vote in the Commons, which could force the government to release all the vetting documents from Lord Mandelson's appointment as US Ambassador. And Wes Streeting, earlier on the programme, confirmed the government would indeed move to release them.
The Met Police have also confirmed that Peter Mandelson is now the subject of an inquiry into alleged misconduct in public office. The maximum penalty for that is life imprisonment.
We've not reached the end of this story, and there's a lot of different parts to unpack. Let's start with our Deputy Political Editor, Sam Coates.
Gone the first time, gone the second time, gone for good.
The Clerk of the Parliament has today received notification from Lord Mandelson of his intention to retire from the House.
Peter Mandelson has left politics and Parliament for the last time, renouncing his seat in the House of Lords rather than waiting to be kicked out. All over his repeated lack of candour about his 20-year-plus relationship with the financier and paedophile Jeffrey Epstein.
Are you embarrassed about Peter Mandelson's actions? Who's to blame for bringing him back?
Keir Starmer's anger heard behind these doors. Mandelson is a disgrace who let the country down, the Cabinet was told. His threat to pass a law to strip his peerage was the final straw. Fury over a relationship between Mandelson and Epstein that others were asking about in much more depth long before Keir Starmer.
In June 2009, did you stay at the apartment in Manhattan of Jeffrey Epstein?
I'm not answering any questions about him.
He was in jail at the time for soliciting prostitution from a minor.
And my knowledge of him is something that I regret. I wish I'd never met him in the first place.
But emails released by the US government over the weekend revealed there was so much more. Payments to Mandelson's husband worth thousands. There's no suggestion of wrongdoing from him, but also alleged market-sensitive intelligence passed straight to the paedophile financier within seconds of Mandelson receiving it. Condemnation from all sides.
They have made a grave error of judgment.
I think the Prime Minister himself needs to come clean and tell us what he knew and when.
It's quite outrageous and people will be quite disgusted by it.
We shouldn't have had to wait all these months before he was able to sidle out very quietly and very disgracefully and resign without being sacked.
Downing Street has already handed over details of key emails to the police. Now Scotland Yard are looking at whether the law was broken.
The news that the police have launched a full-blown inquiry into Peter Mandelson will, incredibly, be welcomed in the building behind me because they are desperate to take as tough a line as possible to insulate themselves from the massive fallout from the departure of Peter Mandelson. Because the charge that these guys are facing is as toxic as they come in politics, that they took a hear no evil, see no evil approach to appointing a man who has been a fixture of the Labour family for more than 4 decades.
After Prime Minister's questions, the Tories will try and force the disclosure of vetting documents prepared before Mandelson's appointment, dividing Labour MPs from number 10 in the process. The embarrassment continues. Sam Coates, Sky News, Westminster.
I just wanted to speak to you directly for a minute about my own experience in Westminster over more than 20 years. Peter Mandelson, obviously a very charming man, funny, well-connected, gossipy. You hear a lot of people talk about him with affection in Westminster. My own stand-up memory of him is a bit different. The first time I met him, I was at my first ever Labour Party conference. I was a trainee reporter in my early 20s. So in other words, I had no status, no connections, nothing really at all like that. And I guess the best way to put it is that Peter Mandelson was dismissive rather than charming. The reason I'm saying this is because I think it goes to the heart of Westminster's problem, a problem that I believe is deeply connected to the Epstein scandal. In Epstein's world, status, connections, money was everything. Because people who look at Westminster in the same way they might look at Washington and think, this is a closed group of elites who all know each other, who go to the same parties, who share the same in-jokes, well, to a large extent, they are right. There are too many people in Westminster who look over the shoulder of the person they're talking to see if there's someone more important in the room. Status is everything. What stories can they give me? How can they further my career? The personal and the professional become blurred. And Peter Mandelson is the embodiment of that. Charming, well-connected, gossipy, in the inner circle. If we're honest with ourselves, that's the reason he's been allowed to fail and then be rehabilitated so many times. It's the reason he was given the best job in politics, US ambassador, despite being friends with a paedophile. And it's the reason, frankly, he's had a softer landing than many others would have had in his position. I mean, a softer landing until now, because after the latest dump of Epstein emails, there really is no coming back, not even for the most charming man in Westminster. I spoke to the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, earlier. He responded directly to what I've just said.
I read your piece on it, Sophie, and I think it's rightly challenging on all of this. I think that in relation to his appointment as US ambassador, he was appointed on the basis that he had considerable experience both as this country's business secretary and as the EU Trade Commissioner. That, combined with his political experience at a sensitive time for UK-US relations and against the backdrop of global instability, it was felt that he was the right person with the right skill set. I would just say, I do not need a copy of the ministerial code or a copy of the law of the land in front of me to know that what Peter Mandelson did was completely outrageous. And there is a feeling of deep betrayal here. He's betrayed two prime ministers. He's betrayed his country and our national interest. He's betrayed Epstein's victims.
Well, Mari's here to talk a bit more about all of this and how today might unfold. Mari, I mean, we're waiting for this vote that the Conservatives have brought about to release the documents, though I guess Wes Streeting implied that the government was going to release this either way. But with this vote or otherwise, it's going to be a blockbuster day in Parliament with PMQs.
Yeah, I mean, PMQs enough would be pretty eye-catching, considering what we've had unfold in the past 24, 48 hours, not even the past week. And then you have the fact that it's opposition day, and therefore the Tories are able to really drive the agenda, and they want these files released. Now, the government, as you were talking to Wes Streeting, has said that the government is going to release that information in terms of the vetting and how this came about, that Peter Mandelson was given that job. And their caveat really is that they won't obviously release any details that are kind of sensitive to national security or international diplomacy, but they are trying to show that they are doing that in the spirit of transparency. Now, of course, that might be the case. It's also the fact that they politically don't really have a choice when it comes to releasing those documents. You can't really imagine a scenario in which they decide not to release those documents and imagine the mutiny in their own ranks. I mean, don't even worry about the opposition, just in the Labour Party alone. That would be unthinkable. And so they are trying to basically table an amendment on that humble address to have those caveats around national security and then try and get Labour MPs to vote for that. It's going to be embarrassing if you get Labour MPs who are not voting for their party, who are voting for the opposition. But there is also a feeling around how much or to what extent this vote might be able to be helpful to some of those in the Labour Party who might want to damage a man called Morgan McSweeney, who is the Chief of Staff for Keir Starmer and is a controversial figure in the Labour Party, let's say, and is known for his links and friendship with Peter Mandelson.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be quite something, isn't it? And as you say, you know, that mood about, again, among Labour MPs, really all important. Murray, thanks very much indeed.
And the other person, of course, at the centre of all of this is Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, formerly Prince Andrew, and police have confirmed that they're now assessing claims that a woman was sent to the former Duke by Jeffrey Epstein back in 2010.
So Andrew's now officially moved out of Royal Lodge. He's living in a house on the Sandringham estate in Norfolk. Our royal correspondent, Rhiannon Mills, has the details.
We have known for a few months now that it wasn't if he was going to move, it was when. But certainly the palace didn't want to guide us on when exactly that process was going to begin. But it appears it has happened. After living on the Windsor estate, after living in that Royal Lodge for over 22 years, he is now, I'm told, this is how it was put to me, he is now instead a resident of Norfolk. Now, the way it's been described to me is that actually this is, in a way, the start of the move. So they've seen this as sort of the primary start of it. He's actually been moved to what they're describing as temporary accommodation. And then in further months' time, we will see him move to a more permanent residence. So look, we can't forget that over the weekend we've had all of those Epstein files released and all of the details that we've had within that, whether it's photos, emails. On top of that, there's also been these claims coming from lawyers over in the States. They say they're now representing a woman who claims that she was trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein to Royal Lodge to spend time with Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, and also during that time with him also was taken to have tea at Buckingham Palace. Now, we know that Republic, who are the anti-monarchy group, had reported these allegations to the Metropolitan Police. Later on, we then heard from Thames Valley Police because, of course, the Windsor estate is within their jurisdiction. So Thames Valley Police have said, we are aware of reports about a woman said to have taken place at an address in Windsor in 2010 for sexual purposes. We're assessing the information in line with our established procedures. We take any reports of sexual crimes extremely seriously and encourage anyone with information to come forward. At this time, these allegations have not been reported to Thames Valley Police by either the lawyer or their client. And it is really important to stress that Andrew Mountbatten-Windsor, throughout all of this time, as we've reported on the allegations against him and his links with Jeffrey Epstein, has continued to deny any wrongdoing. However, we have not heard from him or anyone representing him over the last few days.
Rhiannon speaking there. Now, we're talking a lot about cancer care on the programme today because the government is launching its National Cancer Plan for England.
And the focus is all about getting people seen more and treated more quickly, investing more money in new tech and ending what's been described as the postcode lottery of patient care.
Now, lots of us know someone with cancer, know someone who's survived cancer. Let's have a look, shall we, at some of the details, because this stuff is really important. And the first number I want to point to is this one, 2035. This is the deadline that the government set itself, and they want 75% of cancer patients either to be cancer-free or living well 5 years after diagnosis. Currently, that 75 number is 60%, so it's pretty ambitious. And to do that, they're going to try and speed everything up. So by 2029, they want to meet all cancer waiting time standards. So that effectively means hundreds of thousands more patients being treated within 62 days. To do this, they're going to use lots more tech, including this, robotic surgery. They think that could actually really make a difference using stuff like robotic surgery. And taken as a whole, they claim the measures could end up saving 320,000 more lives. So it's ambitious, the targets. But I guess the question lots of people will be asking is it actually going to work? Targets have been made and failed to reach before.
Yeah, and I think, the starting point of this big announcement, 10-year plan, was delayed by about a year. The new government wanted to really make sure they got fully behind all the details before doing it. It had been scheduled for about a year ago. Where I think we've lagged versus other developed nations in the last decade or so is in terms of making most of the scientific progress. So actually, there's been progress in arbitrary terms, but not relative to other countries making progress. And I think that's where they're obviously now trying to harness those scientific and technological developments and try and catch us up to other countries.
Yeah, it's something that West Streeting, I think, was quite... I guess, kind of fessed up to, really, that we haven't seen the progress, as you say, Wilf, that they have in other places.
Now, President Trump says he'll support sending more federal agents to help find the mother of US morning television anchor Savannah Guthrie.
So Savannah's mum, Nancy, is 84. She was reported missing on Sunday when she didn't attend church, and police believe she was abducted from her home. Our US correspondent Martha Kellner has the latest.
Savannah Guthrie is one of the most well-known TV personalities in the United States. She's a co-host of NBC's Today Show, their flagship morning breakfast show. And this is an incredibly disturbing and mysterious story concerning her mother, 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie, who detectives believe was taken against her will, snatched from her bed in the middle of the night, the late hours of Saturday evening into the early hours of Sunday morning. And this is definitely not a case of cognitive decline. They describe Nancy Guthrie as being sharp as a tack. She does, however, have physical health problems, which are a cause of immediate concern. We know that she wears a pacemaker, and that pacemaker lost contact with a phone and a watch, which were left inside the house when she disappeared. This is a story with so many questions. Certain news organisations are reporting that they have received ransom notes from an individual or individuals claiming to be the kidnapper of Nancy Guthrie, demanding money or threatening or else if they don't receive that money. Police say they're looking into whether these ransom notes are legitimate, so I'm sure there'll be more to come on that. But as for Savannah Guthrie, she's released a statement begging for news about her mother, praying for her safe return. She was supposed to be featuring a key part of NBC's coverage of the Winter Olympics in Italy beginning this week. She now will not attend the Winter Games, as you might expect. She's very much focused on the search for her mum.
That was Martha Kellner. Of course, tragic situation there for Savannah Guthrie, and everyone hoping for a positive update.
Coming up, we're going to be talking to the chairman of the Conservative Party, Kevin Hollinrake. The Conservatives obviously pushing for the government to release as much information as they can on Peter Mandelson's appointment.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live.
They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway.
Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think is really unusual? Mornings with Richard and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started. We just want to play you something that's come in the last few moments. This is Bill Gates, who's been responding to allegations against him following the latest release of Epstein files. He says he does now regret the time he spent with the sex offender, and this is what he had to say in Australia.
Apparently, Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there. Was he trying to attack me in some way? But, it just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret and I, apologize that I did that.
Bill Gates there facing some of the accusations around his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Well, look, it's a story that has had reverberations across the world. Some of the most wealthy and powerful people being dragged up into it. It's also had huge implications here in Westminster as well. And the chairman of the Conservative Party, I'm pleased to say, joins us now. That is Kevin Hollinrake. Good to have you with us.
Right.
So you're tabling what you're calling a humble address in Parliament today on Peter Mandelson. What are you trying to do?
Get the Prime Minister to reveal everything he knew about Peter Mandelson before he appointed him to one of the top jobs in politics, ambassador to the US. And let's not forget, Peter Mandelson had a very checkered record in politics before he was appointed to this role. He'd resigned twice from the Cabinet, once because of a financial scandal, and indeed it was clear he knew Jeffrey Epstein and had a relationship with him after he was a convicted paedophile. And yet still, Keir Starmer, despite lots of people expressing reservations about that, appointed him to that top job. We want to know, this is a rarely used procedure, want to know all the documents, see all the documentation, knew exactly what advice Keir Starmer was given before he made that decision. Clearly, it's a very bad decision about appointing somebody to that role who was clearly a wrong 'un.
The government is saying that they are going to release the information, right? Some of it, they say, is simply not going to be released on national security grounds. I mean, do you accept that? Like, there is going to be sensitive information from other allies around the world that could be in these documents. Do you accept that some of it may have to be redacted?
Well, let's be clear, they're only releasing the information because we forced them to do that. So clearly, Keir Starmer could have marched his troops up the hill and gone to vote against releasing the information, his own MPs, and they were going to do that. So he's had to back down and said he will release the information. Now, he's put that caveat on it about national security, which we understand, as long as that's not a smokescreen to conceal information that should be released, information that may embarrass Keir Starmer himself. So that cannot be a reason.
You'll basically judge it when you see what's been released and you think, actually, fair enough, some of this has had to be redacted, but they have been transparent and in good faith.
Yes, if it's redacted, in terms of you can see, it's pretty clear what reason you would need to redact something. But if you're stopping release of documents, you don't know what they're not releasing. So, I'm sure the officials within the Cabinet Office who will be responsible for this are decent people, and I'm sure they'll do the right thing. But it's very, very important that the public has confidence that all the information is now being revealed.
Can we take all the politics out of this for a minute, right? Because it feels to me like it's a bit of a wake-up call for all of us who work in Westminster. And you look at the kind of the elites, the powerful people who are part of this network, you can understand why people feel like they just want to wash the hands of the lot of them, right?
I can understand that. I think it's bad for the whole world of politics. Everything, but some people think, well, they're all the same. And that's a very bad thing. And, you know, I think sometimes we're our own worst enemy. We describe each other as incompetent, self-serving, those kind of things. And sometimes the media says that about us. But the vast majority of people go into politics for the right reasons, to fix things, to make the country a better place, to make the world a better place. Now, but the nature of these allegations, we are not playing politics here. The nature of these allegations is that during a time, 2008, 2009, Peter Mandelson was doing favours for a convicted paedophile on the basis that he could have financially profited from that. Both Epstein and clearly potentially a connection, there's money changing hands between Epstein and Mandelson. This at a time, I was in business at that time, we thought our business was going to go bust. Millions of other businesses would have felt the same. 3.7 million people lost their jobs. This isn't just politics, this is real people's lives. And Peter Mandelson was basically taking advantage of that situation.
The allegation is, and the police...
The allegations look pretty compelling. And, you know, I don't think anybody denied those allegations. The police investigation, of course, people who are innocent until proven guilty, of course. But it seems quite clear here those allegations may lead to a prosecution for misconduct in public office, which is a very, very serious offence.
You talked a bit earlier about how we all need to take care in the language we use when people have such, I guess, distrust of politicians. And now you put out a video saying Reform usually have a lot to say, but on Epstein they're silent, and you show a clip showing Nigel Farage praising Peter Mandelson for being a master of his brief. What is the implication there?
Well, just make sure that nobody has anything to hide in terms of relationship with Epstein. It seems to me that normally you see Reform piling into these things, unless it doesn't seem to be doing that. So we're not making any specific allegations about that, of course.
Because Nigel Farage, you know, he was named in the files, but kind of in a kind of very roundabout kind of way. And the reason I'm saying this is because, like, it does matter, doesn't it? You know, there's a fake photo circulating online of Nigel Farage with Jeffrey Epstein, and this kind of, like, you know, nudge, nudge, wink, wink is... What are you saying? It's not helpful, isn't it?
Well, that's not a fake photo we put out, of course. That's
no, I'm not saying that's a fake photo. That's right.
But, people should be clear about their connections with Jeffrey Epstein. That's what's gone wrong here with Peter Mandelson, and as I say, that's what's wrong here with the judgment of the Prime Minister. So we want to make sure all the connections with Jeffrey Epstein are revealed, and if there are any situations or is any evidence of wrongdoing, then that should be made available to the public and to Parliament, which is what today's all about.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Kevin Hollenrake speaking to us there. Coming up, we're going to be talking about the really important story we've been covering on the programme today about fostering, and two people that you might be familiar with, stars of the Traitors, Judy and Roxy. It's an incredible story about how fostering changed their lives. That's coming up next.
Welcome back. A quick bit of breaking news to bring you some sad breaking news. The former snooker player and broadcaster John Virgo has died at the age of 79. It's been announced by World Snooker and, of course, known first and foremost as a snooker player, but then also as the host of Big Break, which was, of course, a very successful snooker-based TV programme for the late 80s, 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah, he won 4 professional titles, reaching the semi-finals of the World Championship. 79 years old.
John Virgo there. Now, we are going to be talking more now about the fallout for the government and the Labour Party as a whole following the Epstein file releases over the weekend and what it means for Lord Mandelson. In particular, of course, the Conservatives today tabling a vote to try and force the government to release all of the files that they had in and around the appointment of Lord Mandelson as ambassador to the United States and what it says about the due diligence that was carried out or not in that appointment. Let's talk about it now with the Labour MP for Middlesbrough, Andy MacDonald. Very good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Firstly, your reaction to the revelations that have come out in these files over the last few days as it relates to the behaviour of Lord Mandelson?
Well, the feeling is one of disgust and betrayal by somebody who's been the heart of the Labour Party for decades. He's not only embarrassed and brought the Labour Party into disrepute and this government, he's betrayed our country. And I think we've got to be calling this out for what it is. This is a man who's lived in rarefied atmospheres of oligarchs, financiers and royalty, and he's enjoyed that. What on earth he was ever doing in the Labour Party in the first place has always been a mystery to me. But that's what's informed him. And for our current government not to have taken full recognizance of what was known about Peter Mandelson, forget about the stuff that was later revealed post his appointment as ambassador. What was known at the time was more than sufficient to say, you do not touch this man with a barge pole. He's dangerous for us. And look what's happened subsequently. We see him betraying our country, and he's been doing it for years, sending information to Epstein on highly sensitive macroeconomic policy issues. What on earth was he thinking of? These are not some sort of casual errors and chit-chat. These are fundamentally important things that he's disclosed, and he should never do that. He's betrayed Gordon Brown, and no wonder Alistair Darling's colleagues are utterly furious to think this is how he's behaving whilst he was in government.
Are you furious that he was appointed as ambassador?
I am. It's not that we didn't know these things. We knew about his association with Epstein, and I've heard people say people should not be condemned for their association. My goodness, he was trying to defend and protect a convicted paedophile. He went to stay in his house. What does that tell us about his judgment? And what does it tell us about those who are making a judgment in government appointing him there in the first place?
We're waiting today for the likely publication of the vetting papers, the due diligence that was carried out before his appointment as ambassador. Is that kind of irrelevant to you? What information finally was put into a document to reach the Prime Minister? Should the Prime Minister have known better, regardless?
I think, given what was known about Peter Mandelson prior to the appointment, the alarm bells were ringing. And if there was any discussion about Peter Mandelson going to the United States, there should have been a hands-on examination of every detail. Now, the Prime Minister will say that I can only make judgments on the basis of information that's put before me. That then begs the question, well, who was doing their job or not doing their job in providing him with that information? Because it's landed us in this appalling situation, and people have got to be held accountable for their failures, because this is a catastrophic failure of either the vetting process, either there was an overreach and an excusing of this behaviour, or it failed to pick it up. You know, how could it be that Gordon Brown knew of matters in September 2025, and yet when it's put to the Cabinet Secretary, we've no trace of these emails? Well, certainly Gordon Brown knew about it.
Will you vote with the Conservatives today, then?
I probably will, because I've seen the amendment, and it brings in issues of national security, of international relations and foreign affairs. Well, that's what this is about. And if this amendment were to stand at face value, it would be to throw a cloak over the entire Mandelson affair.
You don't even support the attempts by the government to add an amendment? You'll vote entirely with the Conservatives?
I wholly acknowledge the need to have full recognizance about issues of national security. That's why we have an Intelligence and Security Committee. They can go where other people cannot go, and they should be engaged. We cannot have the government marking its own homework. So it's imperative that there is a mechanism whereby all of the information, not filtered, but all of the information is put through that mechanism, and we take it from there. But this amendment to simply say that we're we support what the Tories are saying, save for the impacts upon foreign affairs, international relations, and national security, is a nonsense, because it just is a way of not revealing information.
Just finally, clearly the police will carry out their investigation specifically into Lord Mandelson. You said there must be accountability about the decision to appoint him. Should a head role, should heads plural role, high up in the government?
I think that's absolutely right. I can't think of anything more serious than this.
Possibly the Prime Minister?
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know what... This inquiry's got to establish who knew what and when. Now, it's obviously at a very senior level where these sorts of decisions are made. So there's an awful lot of knowledge within the number 10 operation. I wasn't in the room, you weren't. I don't know where that lands. But, you know, to think that it hasn't gone as near the top as possible is for the birds. So,
just to follow that, so if someone verbally or on paper said to the Prime Minister at any point, I'm not sure we should make this appointment because of what's public about Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, if that much had reached Keir Starmer, which it seems it would have done, would that be enough for you to want him to leave his post?
Well, he's saying that that didn't happen, so I think we've got to take him at face value until such times as we know something to the alternative. He's saying that he wasn't in possession of that information. I think we've got to accept that the Prime Minister is telling the truth there. I mean, I've known Keir Starmer for a good many years. I can't think that he would sanction, deliberately overreach or ignore information that was critical. I take that at face value. But if he was denied critical information by other people deliberately to secure Mandelson in Washington, then it's they who've got to bear responsibility at the very least.
Andy MacDonald, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Labour MP there. Gosh, you get a real grasp there of the strength of feeling on the Labour Party ranks.
Fury, I think, and, you know, the headline coming out of that, Andy MacDonald there saying he is prepared to vote with the Conservatives on this issue because he feels so strongly.
Even against any amendments to release the information, which I think is pretty stark and highlights how tough a day it's going to be in Parliament for the government.
Yeah, it's certainly one. Now, we're talking about fostering because the government's relaxed the rules around foster care. It's part of its pledge to get 10,000 vulnerable children into supportive homes.
There's been a huge drop in the number of foster carers over the last few years, which means more young people are ending up in children's homes, which are often nowhere near where they've grown up geographically, and sometimes they're even separated from their siblings.
Now, normally on this programme, I try and keep my kind of impartiality and my neutrality and all that kind of thing, but I'm very excited by the next guest, I have to say. Two people who know all too well the challenges and, you know, the complexities in the foster care system. You might recognise them. Roxy Wilson, she opened up about her experience being fostered by her mum, Judy, both on The Traitors. Roxy, I actually cried when you said that at the dinner table, you know, just because I think what you just displayed there was how transformative fostering can be, you know, if you find the right family and the right mum, the right people looking after you.
Yeah, it's transformative is a really great word because it's just life-changing. It's from a really sort of unfortunate life or a really great life. That's the difference it can make, so it's huge.
And you were 5, that's right, weren't you?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
5 when I was adopted, so the first 5 years in care and then adopted by mum.
Yeah.
How many strains are there on that process? And can you understand why there's been a mismatch in the last decade?
I think because obviously now it's quite difficult to foster because there's so many rules and regulations around it, and we're trying to make awareness about fostering that, you know, somebody's going to rewrite, obviously, the book, as you would say, so hopefully we can get more foster carers on board.
The thing that really, I think, is quite sort of heartbreaking, I guess, about your story as well, so you obviously had a sister, and you were unable to foster or to adopt, both Roxy and her sister because of the relationship between them at the time.
Yes.
That must have been difficult.
That's very hard, yes. Obviously, I had 3 boys, obviously, so quite a big family. And I think if different circumstances, I think I probably would have took her on as well. But, you know, I've just opened my heart to one child and I'm just blessed.
And you must have felt that, I guess, the kind of weight of being the sister who got to be with Judy.
And this is something that I often think about because our lives went in 2 different trajectories as well. So I was so fortunate, and perhaps I don't want to speak on behalf of anyone, but perhaps she's less fortunate than I am in the sense of what I've got in life with my mum. So it is something that strikes me, especially with this campaign, because there are kids who don't get fostered, adopted, and they get lost in the system somehow. And that's also a big part of getting more people to foster so that this doesn't happen.
Judy, can I come back to the point there? You said rules and regulations. Do you think that is the biggest factor that holds back people?
I think it is. I think people, you know, think that they need to have a big house, they need to have plenty of money. It's not about that. It's about having a heart and, you know, giving a child a home, you know, helping them to develop in life. And that's what all it is about, to be fair.
And so do you think that there's a case for simple changes from the government that can help, or that's not the kind of...
I think there's going to be a simple change, and that's what we need moving forward for, you know, to rewrite the book and, you know, same-sex couples can adopt, single parents can adopt. You know, there's always a stigma of that. It's just got to be, you know, a man and a woman, whatever. But no, it isn't.
It's about opening your heart,
yes.
Right? And I think...
Yeah.
I read you saying the first night I think you were at Judy's and you said that Judy came up to you and said, in this house, we hug each other and we tell each other that we love each other.
Yeah.
And how did that feel when you heard that, when you were that little girl?
Yeah, it's really resonated. I think that's why I still think about it to this day, because I was in many foster carers placements and I'd never really heard that or had that. So there's many kids now that don't hear that or understand, or they have love, but it's a different kind of love. It's not sort of love, family love, the unit, the strength. So I think that was just really something that, when I heard it, I was like, oh, this is it. It's no getting rid of me now.
No, no. I think we won the lottery when we got Roxy.
Oh.
She's absolutely beautiful inside and out, and it's just a pleasure. And I know that there's loads of kids out there that needs to be... You're getting really upset.
I know, no, but it's me. I think
there's loads of children out there that need home, you know, and you need just to open your heart and we can make it happen, you know.
I think, just to pick up on that, it really is not about being perfect. If you're a parent with biological children, you're not a perfect parent, right? There's challenges, there's struggles, and it's no different with the child that's coming from a foster background.
No.
You're just helping them so much, and I think, honestly, there's nothing better you can do in life.
You must be so grateful to your mum.
Yeah, there's no words, because I've seen firsthand how things could go and have gone, and I look at myself and I think, OK, I've got pride in what I've done, but I've done it because of my mum. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing... Yeah, it's just a lot.
Can I ask a question about Traitors? Because I watch Traitors obsessively, right? And...
Full disclosure, I'm afraid I didn't watch it.
If you did watch it, you'll know that you were voted up first. No one knew that you two were related.
No.
So how did you keep it in? You must have been furious when you...
I was, but I just thought Sorry, Mo, it's a bit of my strategic game plan. But I just thought if I say anything, I'm the next one gone. It's
true.
So I have to just keep it quiet.
It's true. And I'm so proud because she did so well. I mean, it got me out, but she did really well. I'm so proud of her.
She didn't vote for you, though, so it wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
No, she stuck up for me. Good old Roxy.
Yeah, you were doing a bit behind the scenes, I could tell.
so hard.
Yeah. But it was incredible. And now we've got a bit of a platform now. We can talk about fostering, which is, you know, dear to our hearts, so adoption.
It's amazing. You're very inspiring. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Let's update you now as we end on the weather.
I hope we haven't forgotten anything.
Travel insurance, I tick that box.
Yeah, but remember what you forgot last year.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News weather.
The unsettled theme continues this week with spells of rain, hail, snow, bringing localised disruption. It's chilly out there with some icy stretches, but the southwest is milder. Patchy rain, sleet and hail snow in the north will become increasingly confined to Scotland this morning, allowing Northern Ireland and Northern England to largely dry up. Elsewhere, it will be mainly dry. Low cloud in the south breaking to give sunny spells, but there will be showers, mainly over Ireland, and it will be milder than yesterday, but there'll still be a brisk wind.
All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News weather.
Welcome back, excuse me. After the break, welcome back from the weather. After the break, we'll be talking to the director of a new film about resistance from a family a Palestinian family in the West Bank. We'll be right back.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
Welcome back. It's a film that's more relevant than ever. All That's Left of You, directed by Shireen Davis, tells the story of a Palestinian family's fight for survival after being uprooted by trouble in the occupied West Bank. Here's a taste of it.
No one ever thought any of this would happen. I'm here to tell you how it started.
برضك مصاريف هي مسميها حياة ما تكونش أهبل يا ابني.
Well, Sharon joins us now. I should say first up that this has been, you know, a massive success, lots of awards. But the story is the thing that's important, right? And what Absolutely. It is holding up a mirror to. Just talk us through your kind of motivation in making the film.
Well, I'm Palestinian-American. My father is from the West Bank, and he was forced into exile in 1967. So, like the characters in the film, it took him many years to get foreign citizenship just to return to visit his home, the only home he'd ever known, and his family. And so I grew up with his heartache over his exile and sort of the trauma of watching his homeland kind of disintegrate and deteriorate and the situation worsen. And he successfully passed that trauma on to his kids. So this film, in many ways, for me, was my attempt to explore my own intergenerational trauma, the collective trauma of the Nakba, which is what happened to Palestinians in 1948, and the kind of ongoing dispossession and the impact of the ongoing occupation. And I really wanted to really take a look at how history shapes people, how ongoing violence really changes the domestic sphere. It infiltrates the domestic sphere, and it changes relationships between husbands and wives and fathers and sons, and really show the emotional impact of all of these events on Palestinians, you know, who so often we see in the headlines, but we don't really have an understanding of what people are going through on a day-to-day basis.
And you cover decades in this film. That's right. It covers the sort of story as a whole. Is there a positive story through it? There's a great backbone of resilience?
There is, you know, because the Palestinian people are incredibly resilient, and so much of this film is about my experience of being Palestinian, which is one of tremendous love and generosity and resilience and patience and humor and tenderness. And so that is, you know, that runs throughout the film. I think one of the things that's inspired me so much is that, you know, we're a very hopeful people. That's how we survive. And this film is very much about the extraordinary will that it takes to survive this type of ongoing political turmoil and personal loss. And, you know, attempting to make meaning out of our grief. And, you know, the film definitely, I think, is about really facing one's pain so that you can move through it and really try to find a way to continue living, you know, because if we don't do that, then we're not really living, are we?
Yeah, I was very struck by how you were talking there about how it's about the impact on relationships and really, I guess, telling the full story of people, of Palestinians. Do you think that the way that Palestinians are presented can, I guess, be a bit dehumanising sometimes?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Palestinians have been depicted in ways that are quite dangerous, actually, really dangerously misrepresented. I don't know that the world actually has gotten to see our humanity and the ways in which we have really risen above so much of what is happening. You know, there's so much grace in how Palestinians have reacted to the decades of what they've been through. But the world really only gets to see a very small reaction of the Palestinian people. But, you know, Palestinians react and resist in myriad ways. And I think that the film really shows that.
And the film comes out when?
The film comes out this Friday, February the 6th.
And has obviously had a fantastic run, as Sophie was saying, across all sorts of awards from Sundance to the rest. Thank you so much for joining us. Very much appreciated.
Such a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for being on. It really does sound worth watching.
Shireen Davis. We have a massive day ahead in Westminster. I don't think there's any two ways about it. PMQs today, of course, be live on Sky News with Jane and the team. Will be properly box office, but also very important.
Yeah, it will. And of course, all eyes too on the vote that's going to be happening. The government is going to be releasing those documents about the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US ambassador. And I have to say, as soon as we get them, even if they're going to be redacted to some extent, I really think that that is going to give the story a whole new turn.
I would also just reflect on that Andy McDonald interview. I mean, I think we knew there was great dissatisfaction across the Labour Party, some dating back to even Peter Mandelson's appointment, but certainly now a scale of disappointment in that process. I wasn't sure he'd be that public about it. I knew he was going to say, you know, we have to make sure we get to the bottom of this, we must be transparent. I didn't know he'd be as outspoken on that topic as he was.
Labour MPs
publicly.
Furious, I think it's fair to say, and we got a taste of that with Andy McDonald. An awful lot coming up throughout the day. It's going to be a big day in Westminster that could have implications for Keir Starmer and will certainly have implications for Peter Mandelson.